The tenure out west continues, and after a long-awaited gamble set on the table at Las Vegas Motor Speedway settled, we head further into the desert to Phoenix Raceway for the third race of the 2025 season. Good evening and welcome to coverage of race number 3 in Season 1 of the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series on the KBueno Racing Network, live from the virtual Phoenix Raceway in Avondale, Arizona. And welcome to the coverage. We are so happy to have you back after a little bit of a week off, as alongside Francisco Bacchiao in the broadcast booth sits, I'm Kenneth Bueno alongside. Francisco, we've got a great race building up. Obviously, the Daytona 500 taking place in real life as we speak, but drivers were planned for this race ever since this schedule was released several months ago. We had an off week for the Super Bowl in New Orleans. We came back here, and even though NASCAR is running in real life, lots of intensity to discuss here. The DTH Cup Series has been in full swing, and tonight may make it even more dramatic as we push forward into the regular campaign.
Happy to be here in the virtual Phoenix Raceway, Kenneth, and I think you and I, as well as basically every driver out on the racetrack, is going to have one screen with their sim and the other screen with the live feed of the Daytona 500, just because the way the rain situation worked out in real life. So that's actually going to be something very important to talk about during tonight's race. But what's going to be interesting for today here at Phoenix, Kenneth, we're going to be running at the desert famous racetrack with the open dog leg that guys will be able to take advantage of. But this race looks like it's going to be a morning to midday race, so the track will continue to warm as the race progresses instead of cooling. How will that play a role with how these guys decide to run the race? You see, we're going to continue out west as we move forward. We'll go to the Auto Club Speedway this time next week before we head over to the Midwest in Chicagoland and Road America for the first road course race of the season.
And it's not necessarily a really long regular season. We only have 7 races right before that All-Star break kicks in late March of the virtual Martinsville Speedway. And when you look at the diverse schedule from race 1 up until that last race, until the All-Star event, only 2 of those short tracks that clock in at 1 mile. This being the first at Phoenix, and then Loudon, New Hampshire, taking place as the race right before the All-Star break, before we continue on through the schedule and start diving into those other short tracks that are across the 2025 campaign. But this is the second of our third West Coast swing races. Auto Club Speedway will be next, and Las Vegas definitely showed us a lot last race in 2 weeks ago, where Lawson Peel was able to take the victory. But here is how it all started on the front row. Several drivers taking their spots early. In Francisco, what we noted over the first long green flag run was Chris Cabot, a driver being able to surge ahead of everyone else, but a lot of it came down to who used the tires first before who waited to relinquish their actual potential. Guys like Cedric Hunter made the move early to win stage number 1, and it wouldn't be the last of Category 5 Esports. Watch 3 wide for the race lead. Zachary Hall, Steven Stepien, and Lawson Peel going at it. And while we did have the mix of drivers using or waiting to use their tires throughout the green flag run, we had crazy racing that was absolutely wonderful to watch.
We saw different approaches by several different drivers as to whether they wanted to attack in the early portion of the run or just save the tires. And there was that middle portion where they kind of came together, but ultimately in the final stage we saw a rash of cautions, which ultimately saw people having to use up their tires more in the early parts of the run just because there wasn't going to be that many laps that they would get used for. There's the 67 spinning on the apron there on this moment of caution. But as we got closer to the end, your stars like Lawson Peel, Steven Stepien started to attack more and more, and it showed because they started getting closer to the front of the field where they hadn't been for most of the evening.
It all depended on strategy up until this final caution that brought us this last restart between Steven Stepien and Lawson Peel. Peel got right to the side of Stepien Chevrolet, and then he just pulled away for his first win of this 2025 season, and that makes it a 1-2 effort for different winners in this 2025 campaign. Stubblefield taking the win, and a Chevrolet and Lawson Peel getting the W this time around at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. He'll be searching for his second consecutive victory in this series. He's the 3-time Sunoco Cup champion before that series folded, and then this series was brought in via the Spirit, so we'll see what Peel can do, although he hasn't necessarily been that strong in the qualifying board. So we'll just keep a look at how it all unfolds over the next 5.5 minutes. But that Las Vegas race showed us so much, Francisco, because, you know, you can argue Daytona is a super speedway where practically everyone is level-headed. You have everyone on the same playing field, and in a super speedway, you know, guys like Timothy Stubblefield, let's say if he couldn't beat anyone at Las Vegas, he could beat the drivers at Daytona. Last race 2 weeks ago was the first proper test of what we should expect from the drivers this season, and several of those names we've already taken note of that could be threats here at Phoenix tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at most league schedules that open with Daytona, a large portion of the drivers will look at race 2 and say, yeah, that's the real beginning of the season. When you first arrive to the real racetrack, they have to actually brake and slow down and manage tires for the corners instead of the flat-out super speedway drafting style track, if you will. And so that was Las Vegas, and we saw the kind of runs, who was the showouts here. But now we go to a shorter racetrack like Phoenix, which was a lot different than the Las Vegas Winter Speedway. So there's still people that will find their way here to try to have a little bit more success than they would maybe at a bigger racetrack. Maybe some guys struggle more on this type of racetrack, and it'll all change once again when we show up to Auto Club next week, because it's so much different than the previous 2 racetracks. So there's so many different aspects to all the tracks that we're visiting to here, not just on the West Coast, but compared to the beginning portion of the schedule with Daytona, that it's going to be very difficult to just pick one driver out of the bucket and say this guy is going to be contending every single time out, except for maybe someone like Lawson Pugh, who we have come to see for a very, very long time. He's just as fast and competitive as anywhere.
But there are still challenges across the board, and I mean, today we've been surely with some spoilers. Zachary Rongich, who's going to make his first start in the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series. He's been one of the fastest in practice and one of those top drivers in qualifying as we see it. So still plenty of drivers and still a bunch of teams that have yet to fully prove themselves. We look at guys like D Legacy Motor Club with the likes of Dakota Curtis, James Kunkel, and all those guys that they did well in those first 2 races at Daytona and Las Vegas, but they haven't fully found the charm needed to find their way into victory lane and make themselves a run at the playoffs. However, still a long way to go in this season. It's only race number 3, so a lot of more storylines that still could develop from here on out. Let's get a look overhead at the Phoenix Raceway with our KBRN track map and images provided to us by Google Earth. First trip to Phoenix this season, first short track race of the 2025 campaign. This track outside of Phoenix proper in Avondale, Arizona. Track clocks in at 1 mile, 1.609 kilometers, that opened back in 1964. But ever since this track's reconfiguration back in 2017, Francisco, this track has handled much differently than it did in the past. Previously, that start-finish line, which is right now out of what is turns 3 and 4, where that O'Reilly Auto Parts logo is on pit road. It used to be on what is the back straightaway now here at Phoenix Raceway. Turns 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 were completely flipped. The full surface was repaved, and we had a full revitalization of this track. So although this track has been around for several years on iRacing and in real life for drivers to get used to, Francisco, it's still a challenge anyway to master this track, especially when you change that start-finish line and put it on the other side.
And that was changed a couple of years ago. I believe back in 2021 is when the sim finally updated it just before the season finale. So at first it was tough getting used to it, but in reality the lap didn't really change much at all, Kenneth, and you took us for a lap.
Yeah, this is a look around Phoenix Raceway. That's off of turn 1 and into turn 2. This used to be turns 3 and 4, the old configuration, a very flat area of the racetrack that sits at 9 degrees of banking, so you got to be really patient on the throttle. Then the chase to turns 3 and 4. A lot more banking here at 11 degrees that shoots you right out to the start-finish line, and that LED cactus at the stripe. And then you've got this wide open dogleg. You'll see a lot of drivers on the short run use that to their advantage. They'll spread out wide and make it either 3 or 4, maybe 5 wide heading into turn 1 before it all narrows up in the corner. And as a driver, Francisco, this track really poises the discipline on the gas pedal. You got to be really careful there, especially in turns 1 and 2 with a relatively flat surface, because you take out the bottom end of this race car and that back end diffuser, you take out a ton of downforce. So these cars will have to rely on the throttle and how drivers are willing to be patient over the course of the race.
Yeah, it's just impressive how much this car is reliant on that diffuser at most racetracks, but especially these short tracks, and you just lose a little bit of downforce, or you slide the car just a little bit and it will spin out on you, and you can't really do anything about it. And that's what's really been one of the frustrating learning curve about this car, not just for me personally, but for other drivers that we have come to talk to throughout the years, and this car getting its fair share of updates as it's gotten more track time in real life, and these drivers are going to have a tough time of having to battle that with this car for 200 laps.
It will be the 200 laps that we'll face tonight from the virtual Phoenix Raceway. And like you said earlier in the show, Francisco, this is an atypical style of weather for today's race. We usually have a race that lasts into the afternoon going into the nighttime, or if it starts early afternoon, it will end around 3, 4, or 5 p.m. local time in the game, depending on the track. But like you mentioned, we're starting in the morning here in Sim, so the track temp will only increase as the race goes on, instead of what we usually expect to see in a track temperature decrease from a hot track temp to start the race. So the drivers will have to deal with some elevated grip at the beginning, and then the loss of grip throughout the middle of the portion run before things start to get to the end of it at lap number 200 in our final stage of the race. Let's get you down trackside. Drivers are on pit road, so tonight we bring you the Droppin the Hammah starting grid in anticipation of the third race in this 2025 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series. We're on the pole. It's Warren Kyle Keith, finished here in second place the last time the Sunoco Cup Series ran in Avondale, Arizona. He lines it up on the pole with a 27.046. Zachary Hall stunned many for the Category 5 Esports at Las Vegas 2 weeks ago. He's still searching for the win number 1 in his DTH Cup career. He'll start out on the outside of the front row. Brandon Banks for Drinkin' Bros Racing lines his Chevrolet up in third place. Zachary Rongich making his debut start in the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series. He will roll off his Chevrolet from position number 4. Ross Harlow, short track king as we know it in the Sunoco Cup Series. He'll look for his first win here tonight from Phoenix. He rolls off from 5th. Alex Muscarella in that DTH number 48 rolls off in position 6 on the outside of the third row. Stephen Harlow joins us from 7th place on the grid. Richard Swavely, who picked up a season best second at Las Vegas 2 weeks ago, he rounds out the top 8 before Chris Cabot led a ton of laps at Vegas several weeks ago. He'll try to get it from 9th, and Cedric Hunter swept both stages at Vegas, looking for a W. He starts in P10.
11 is going to go to Richard Modrich and his number 71, with Eric Schaefer in the P12 position. Justin Erb in the number 20 alongside Parker Bland in the number 13 and P14. Kip Easley in his number 8 in the 15th position, as number 8 is battling for the lead right now. And James Kunkel in the number 42 in the 16th position. Timothy Stubblefield, your Daytona winner, will start from P17 with Sean Califf in the 18th spot. Jason Hastings in his number 4 will start in 19th, with Jason Anderson in the top 20.
And there's Lawson Peel trying to defend his win from Las Vegas and go 2 in a row. He's the first driver without a qualifying time from 21st. Craig Parks, fellow DBR teammate in the number 17, will be 22nd in row number 11. D-Legacy Motor Club has Casey Knighton from 23rd, Brad Fulham in 24th, Chris Progar, Robert A. Moyer Jr., that's row number 13. And that basically finalizes your field apart from Kevin Roy and Eric Stewart to a 28-car field from Phoenix. Let's get a look at our SK Sim Racing race analysis from Avondale, Arizona. Stage 1, 60 laps in length. We'll go another 60 to lap 120 to conclude stage number 2, and then we'll try to run it all the way to the end at lap 200 with an 80-lap stage 3. All of those pivotal for the bonus and playoff points. We saw that Category 5 Esports took the field by storm, literally and figuratively, by sweeping both stages at Phoenix. And at Daytona was a bit more of a spread, but we'll see what happens at the first short track race of the calendar. It's Warren Kyle Keith and Zachary Hall, pair of Toyota Camrys, to bring us out of the final corner and to the green flag. We're racing from Phoenix for the first time this season.
And 4 wide already going into turn 1, trying to settle that one out. There's contact. Ross Harlow sideways in the front of the field.
Harlow trying to save it. Can he do so right as the field gets around? I believe he did. So out of turn 2, a wonderful job by Ross Harlow to keep his Chevrolet collected. We remain green flag racing off of lap number 1. And after the chaos down the dogleg, the field settles things out in turns 3 and 4. And the front row look, Warren Kyle Keith continues to man the field. Zachary Hall falls to 4th over the first lap and a half. And Zachary Rongich, who made his way in practice as the top driver, now trying to be the top dog, 2 laps in, chasing down the race leader.
And here's the replay of what happened to the 16 on the start. as they go through the restart zone and accelerate. There's Banks, who actually gets into the back of the 78. That stacks them up. They end up 4 wide here on the dog leg, and they have to narrow down here. And Banks does not get into the 16, but it's the 11 that does slightly. And what a save there by Harlow in the middle of the racetrack with cold tires. That's actually very difficult to do.
And that is a situation where you have everyone all around you, left or right. You take a look and you've got race cars all over the place. So a great job by not only Harlow to save the car, but everyone else virtually for staying out of the trouble and making sure we stay green over the first 3 laps. Ross Harlow continues on, albeit maybe some flat-spotted tires on the way, but drops track position to 17th. And here comes Rongich, a peek to the outside, possibly denied there by Warren Kyle Keith. And the National Guard Chevrolet is making waves early, trying to starve Warren Kyle Keith of any more clean air over the first 5.
Tried to sneak up on the outside and get to his quarter panel and get side by side with the 78, but now he's going to peek to the inside, maybe in the turn 1. What I noticed running laps here, Kenneth, it is faster and better to defend a line on the outside than it is on the inside. That's why you see the 38 desperate to get to the right rear of the 78, hoping to get around him that way. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult to make this pass, especially for the lead, even though it's early on in the race. And a little update on Ross Harlow. He is currently already starting to make up some position. He is trying to work on Eric Schaefer for the 16th position. Just a little bit further ahead is Kip Beasley and Lawson Field. So a handful of DBR guys just in front of the 16 as he's trying to recoup from that lap 1 incident.
And again, we note about the temperature here at Phoenix Raceway through this early morning session in sim that'll work into the afternoon. We'll take a look at it. 74 degrees track temperature here at Phoenix, which is definitely not a lot considering what we have seen before in the past in sim and in real life. This track temperature could easily creep up to the 130s, nearly the 140s. I mean, you are in Arizona, so you're deep into the western South Desert of the United States, but only a 69-degree overall temperature with winds to the southwest at about 1 mile or 2 miles an hour. So you do not have a ton of slipperiness across this racetrack, hence why you see a lot more drivers be comfortable running the separate lanes, particularly those leaders who are faithful to the very outside near the wall. They can find all that grip, but when the track does become slick down the lane, it may just be even tougher to make that move happen. Here's Brandon Banks sitting P6. That's the battle with Richard Swavely for the top 5 spot. They're letting Zachary Hall pull away to the tune of about 0.8 of a second in P4. Brandon Banks, last time that the Sunoco Cup Series was at Phoenix Raceway, and the reason why we mention that so much is that the bulk of the drivers in this series raced in that campaign and that series prior to its folding several months ago. Brandon Banks was one of the best finishers the last time they were there in 2022, who finished in P4 after starting inside the top 10 in a dead heat battle with a fellow Chevrolet. That's Stephen Harlow on the outside, who will be checkmarked successful there in the entry to turn 3.
And Brandon Banks has had a struggle in the last couple of months, Kenneth. I don't think it's a secret for us and himself, because here and in the 4-wide racing series, he has just not had the same speed or results that I'm sure he was expecting of himself. And he's trying to see if he can just get something going in the right direction to turn that ship around.
One-time winner in the Sunoco Cup Series. That came the way of Dover Motor Speedway back in Season 6, but could not do it since. And we know Brandon is one of the more consistent drivers, particularly on these tracks. And in 4-wide history, has won a race here at Phoenix Raceway to get into the Championship 5, but still patrolling inside the top 10 as we see it. There's Rongich again. A look at the inside from Warren Kyle Keith. Playing the defense on that tertiary lane, has not moved from the outside in turns 1 and 2 since the drop of the green flag. Rongich cannot put his car down there off the corner, and so he'll try again, this time at lap 12. But those two, Francisco, have shown that they are leagues above everyone else. Alex Muscarella is the 3rd car in line in that 48 Chevrolet, yet to catch the leaders. He's behind them by at least a second and a half.
And we kind of saw this at Las Vegas as well. Just early on in the run, you see cars trying to push it more than others. Maybe this is another case of that. We'll just have to see. And just looking a little bit further back right now, Lawson Peel, Kip Beasley, Eric Schaefer, all these cars are kind of battling for position with the Easley now behind the 9 car. And we'll see what the likes of Lawson Peel do towards the back half of this run. We saw how at Las Vegas he was being very conservative, and at the end of the race, he popped up at the front of the field and was able to take away the race win on a short run, which we hadn't seen him do be good at in that race. So if Lawson Peel is taking another conservative route and expect to see him later in the race definitely don't come as a surprise.
Well, he's already up to 12th, so there is decent progress for the Columbus, Mississippi native. And, I mean, like you said, this is a mirror image of what we saw at Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago. Didn't bother too much with qualifying, or if he did, he didn't really set the fastest time, wasn't blazing the charts, but by the time the race progressed, he started to catch fire, and that's really all you need if you're a guy like Lawson Peel. Just one swing of momentum that goes your way, and you start chopping off track position and getting drivers out of your way. So we'll keep an eye on Peel here. That Napa Chevrolet sitting second in this group of cars that starts with Justin Erb, the TOW Racing Chevrolet, back in 11th, who's had some solid finishes over this season, has done great over his Sunoco Cup career prior to its folding. But he continues to man this shallow group of cars that resides third in the name of pack racing that we are seeing here at Phoenix slowly develop over the course of the night. And we talk about how Brandon Banks performed the last time Sunoco Cup was at Phoenix. Well, we got to talk about Warren Kyle Keith, who was second place last time they were here in 2022, and already over this season has seen a ton. Francisco Daytona showed that he could be on the ropes at any given moment, was back and forth throughout the entirety of the event. Las Vegas had a really fast race car, but unfortunately was taken out of the win contention late, still searching for golden checkered flag number 1, and he's been really quick here over the first 16, has led every single lap.
He's been very fast, and we saw him be fast at Las Vegas, just didn't really last too long for him to be able to make use of that. But he's trying to make up for it here right now. Early on in this run, has been able to withstand the attacks from the third eight of Zachary Wongich. For now, we'll see what happens as this run continues to progress, as the tires continue to age. And then behind these two, for about 2.5 seconds back, is the 48 of Muscarella and the 23 of Hall battling each other for the last step on the podium.
You can see on the right side of the screen what's building up there. Hall, who started this race on the outside of the front row, ends up as the driver trying to face for third, fell back in those opening laps, particularly in turns 1 and 2, where we saw Ross Harlow get into a bit of trouble. But independent of what happened with the Category 5 esports car of Hall, who had been in several positions to win stage number 2 at Las Vegas, had a really quick pace, but unfortunately got into an incident in turns 3 and 4, sent him back to a finishing running position of 14th after starting inside the top 5. And a look on board there with Hill on the right side of the Hall, rather, on the right side of the screen as he tries to get around Alex Muscarella. And Francisco, we note here at Phoenix, it's such a tough track to make passes at, particularly with the low banking that you encounter in turns 1 and 2. You only have 9 degrees to work with, and if you do not have a decent exit off the corner, chances are you may not be able to make a pass, especially on that inside where you mentioned the top seems to be the best defensively, and it's working in the case of Alex Muscarella.
And if you really grip that paint on the bottom side of 3 and 4, you can absolutely get a pretty big enough run on your competitor. It's going to be just very important in 3 and 4. And 1 and 2, you have so many more options because of the range of the grip that the track has, all the way up against the wall to all the way to the paint. But in 3 and 4, you really only have 1, maybe 1.5 useful lines to really make speed out of that end of the racetrack. So if you're able to hook your left sides on that paint like we've seen Kevin Harvick do, not just here but Atlanta famously, then you could get a run on the driver in front of you down the front straightaway, cut the dog leg, and maybe try to tack in a 1.
Here's a look at Stephen Harlow, driver of the number 11 Chevrolet, 25 years old, out of Fairhaven, Vermont, has comfortably sitting inside the top 5. A driver who had his rookie campaign be the last Sunoco Cup Series season, nearly at the checkered flag twice in that year. But as a driver who started sim racing back in 2022, only about 3 years ago, has been wonderful so far this season and still yet to get positive momentum in his direction, but nonetheless has been definitely fast on the way. You can take a look at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen and see how he gets to work behind the wheel. Francisco, we know that the greatness of sim racing is not exactly the personalities of the drivers and the challenges that you can find in sim with the car and track combos. That's definitely one part of it, but the other part is seeing the different rigs and how much drivers spend money on the sim rigs, whether it be racing wheels, direct drive systems, whether it be their motion rigs, anything you name. You can have drivers that spend, you know, a little bit of money on a decent and very basic rig, or drivers like Stephen Harlow, who have copped in a little more money for the beautiful wheel that you see there on his camera as he gets to work and is catching up quickly to people in 3rd and 4th, Muscarella and Hall.
You could be like Denny Hamlin, where you have the full everything in your own home, or you could be like Timmy Hill and just have a basic wheel and set up on a tiny desk with one monitor and make that work. And it's incredible, just the wide range of different setups that we see on the sim. I don't have anything too complex. I have this G29 that you gave me, actually. This is the second wheel that you've given me, Kenneth, with the Logitech setup and a 2-monitor layout here with a CyberPower PC.
It's a greatness of a Thrustmaster T180. Great wheel. It was my starter wheel before I moved up to a G923. Here comes Zachary Hall to the inside of Alex Muscarella. But again, you can do anything on iRacing with just a simple setup. Sometimes you don't even need a wheel. There are drivers in this community who are famous for using a controller on the sim to
There's
control the wheel.
Kaloa Hankins comes to mind. He uses a mouse.
Yeah, that which I believe is insane. I think using a mouse is a crazy way to drive a race car in the sim. Oh, there's a spinner. There is smoke on the bottom of the racetrack. It is Jason Hastings, the Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolet. And it doesn't appear like he has that much damage, but we'll take a look at the replay and see what transpired to get the in-and-out Chevrolet in the midst of the sauce. And it is the transition through the dogleg, Francisco. What happens to the race car when you get in that transition?
Well, we talked about the floors on these race cars, and if you go over that transition at the wrong angle with the wrong input, it will spin out on you. And oh, so lucky to just miss the inside wall there for the number 4. Let's see if we can get an onboard look of what happened here. Just to kind of see what it looks like. There he goes into the transition. You see that bump right there. That was just enough to send him spinning. Very similar to what happened to Ty Gibbs in the fall race here during the championship event.
Yeah, this car is so connected to the ground, this next-gen car particularly, that you get any sort of difference in elevation, or in the case of Phoenix, that transition in banking between the dog leg and that apron that you can use to your advantage and is wide open for all of the drivers. This car will start to wheel hop, and in Jason Hastings' case, it sent his Chevrolet around, but a great job of saving it, number 1, but also lucky enough to be in a position where nobody else was around him to create any further harm. Now, Hastings has fallen back a lap down. He's in 27th. He's going to be in a lucky dog fight with Eric Stewart, who sits 26, and there he is. Now, on the outside of 3 wide, Cedric Hunter and Brandon Banks going at it in the fight for P7 as we look at it on the racetrack, but we'll keep an eye on Hastings as things move forward. Still, consistently fighting, Muscarella and Hall are. They have let the leaders pull away by over 2.5 seconds, and while Stephen Harlow has been patiently waiting in 3rd in this group, Zachary Hall is giving it his all on Mozzarella Man entering turn 3, but backs out here to make it at least 2 car lengths of a gap.
That last time by, he went way too deep into turn 3, and you saw him have to back out of that one, losing several car lengths to the 48 in the process. And that's going to hurt him for the next handful of laps as he tries to close the gap in once again and get side by side to try to challenge for that position. All the while, Stephen Harlow in the 11 continues to close in, and there's the 7 of Chris Progar on pit road. He's already 1 lap down in this race, so I'm not sure if something happened, as he does have some significant left front damage on his race car, Kenneth.
Yeah, he's the most recent driver to go a lap down. We were mentioning the fight for the lucky dog spot between Eric Stewart and Jason Hastings. Everything was fine for Chris Progar until the exit of turns 1 and 2. Already had a bit of left front damage, but this situation makes it all the more worse. Just slides the rear tires off the final corner and makes a knock into the inside wall. A bit of echoing there at the barrier as he hit it, and then just stuck there letting the traffic by. And I don't know whether that is suspension damage for Chris Progar, Francisco, but it appears that is the case. Progar out of the race as we see it, falling 2 laps down and more as of lap 32.
Probably taking some damage repair. It is a long race, and he's now 3 laps down as the field is working their way by him. Unfortunate for one of the league owners and Chris Progar and his early end to the contention for this race win. And looking back out on the racetrack, the 78 continues to just have a slim lead over the 38 of Rungic, and Muscarella continuing to having to fend off Zachary Hall, as Hall is back on his rear bumper, ready to mount the charge again.
Hall's going to make a move for 3rd as the battle for the race lead is again within 2 car lengths. Hall is on the way to make a move on Muscarella, but still has not found the silver lining. This could be it, though. At the exit of turn 4, proper move, bouncing through the dog leg. Hall will take a look again through 1 and 2. He'll try to dive it through the center, but again, Alex Muscarella staying put, still making Hall work for all of the money off of turn number 2. Hall's got to look to the inside. Here we go for 3rd place.
A good move right here. He's going to dive it down to the inside, stay in the lane, but Muscarella able to pinch him down enough and is going to try to hold on the outside. He's going to have one last chance at defending here into turn 1. Does the 48 try? Doesn't look like he will, so the 23 patiently after several laps will move his way up into P3, and it's slowly starting to run slightly faster lap times than your leader, so I think this run about with 25 laps to go in the stage as they cross the line now, it's starting to come back their way.
The Newport, North Carolina native is patient enough to get by Muscarella and make that move for third. And speaking of which, his teammate for Category 5 Esports, who took both stages 2 weeks ago at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, Cedric Hunter, is here, making the move on Stephen Harlow. Exactly how we saw it transpire at the first mile-and-a-half race of the season. Francisco was just waiting to use his moment in the right place to get the stage win and get all of those points. And while it wasn't a fruitful finish for the Hello Kitty Toyota Camry, it's another solid start here at Phoenix, 37 laps in for Hunter.
Slowly continues to move his way up through the field, trying to put himself in a better position. Other drivers slowly working on their way up as Lawson Peel, who's up to P9. There you see the 71 of Richard Modric just behind him, and Chris Cabot in 11th, looking to get inside the top 10. Just in front of the 9 is the second place finisher of last week, the 32 of Richard Swavely. There you see the 32 with his famous Hemlock rock and roll racing, or heavy metal racing, or what is it called, Kenneth? I still don't, not too familiar with the race team name.
Well, it is Heavy Metal Jesus Motorsports, and in the spirit of heavy metal and the spirit of rock music itself, Richard Swavely still has this Hemlock paint scheme, a band that was formed in the Las Vegas area, used it to tribute them at Las Vegas 2 weeks ago for the second race of this campaign, but decided, hey, it's a good-looking scheme, it gave me luck, I finished second there, why not run it again here at Phoenix Raceway? Maybe keep it on for the entire West Coast swing. Swavely's good friends with the band members at Hemlock, and for Heavy Metal Jesus Motorsports, a pretty good start to 2025, but he's already bleeding track position. There went Lawson Peel in the move for 8th place, and already to the inside, the SKCars.com Chevrolet of Richard Modric, who has yet to find a breaking point here at this season beginning through race number 3. As he backs out at this point, and we'll take a look on the outside this time of Swavely as they all single file in this line that starts with that 5th place car that we mentioned in Cedric Hunter. Well, the battle for the race lead has simmered down quite a bit as lap traffic creeps into the mix. That is the SK Sim Racing Chevrolet of Sean Kalist right in front of the race leader. Warren Kyle Keith will take a peek to the outside, has to make sure he doesn't overshoot the corner, but it might have already been too late before I said that. 0.4 of a second now between these two, and Francisco yet to see a proper battle for the lead. We haven't seen them fully side by side since maybe about lap 3 or 4. If you're Zachary Wongich, are you just now laying back to save your stuff by the time we get to the end? Because we still have at least 19 to go until the end of the first stage.
It's also possible that he might have used whatever he had trying to keep up with the 78. We saw him be pretty aggressive in the early portion of the run, and that's just enough to do it for you in the run if you're not too careful. But he is slowly starting to creep back up here. He's underneath now half a second. But also I'm watching this 23, who's now cut it to under 2 seconds to your race leader. He's not out of it just yet for the stage.
Still looking onwards, and Zachary Hall has been relatively fast. He still has a bit of a gap to overcome, though, but still a lot of time. 19 laps, I mean, can be clicked off. It's 20 miles roughly here at Phoenix, but still possible in the case that we encountered 2 weeks ago at Las Vegas, where it seemed like everyone that had started the race strong had fallen off considerably, and the time difference between them were so catastrophic that they had just blended into the top 10, and we barely saw them until the caution came out and before all of them came down pit road. The lap time between them two, Hall is the faster car at a 28.379. Rongich and Warren Kyle Keith sitting at 28.5. So again, tires mattering big time here, and so is the lap traffic. Francisco Robert A. Moyer Jr., Sean Kalist taking both lines away from Rongich. He has nowhere to go, and he's sliding near the outside wall.
And just about taps the rear bumper there of the lap car and has to go to the inside, almost makes contact again off the corner. That's going to cost some time to your race leader, but that's going to be something we'll have to watch as the race goes on. With such a short of a racetrack, the lap traffic will play a factor, especially in that final stage where there's more laps under the green flag than these first handful of stages. But the leader was able to get by just fine, so we'll see what Zachary Rongich can do to continue to catch up as the 23 continues to close in. And looking a little bit further back, Cedric Hunter now on the back bumper of Alex Muscarella, who's falling off.
He's taking a peek to the inside, so it's another Category 5 esports and Droppin the Hammah team encounter. There goes the Hello Kitty Toyota to the inside, and this time much more of a convincing answer to who could win that fight. We saw how Zachary Hall worked so hard to get around that Lowe's Chevrolet. It took maybe the better part of 3 seconds for Cedric Hunter to make a move on the inside. And, I mean, the damage will not be done quite yet because the teammate of Muscarella, Stephen Harlow, who we took a peek with earlier in this race on board his Chevrolet, well, he's making a move to the inside. So a possible change here for the last spot inside the top 5. 46 laps in, we have 22 cars on the lead lap. Should a yellow flag arise, Sean Kalist is the man with the lucky dog position. He's in that lucky dog fight with Robert A. Moyer Jr., who started 26 at Las Vegas and finished exactly where he took the green flag from. It was his first proper start in 2025. And some cool lore for Robert A. Moyer Jr., who's repping the Christopher Bell paint scheme in honor, I guess, of the Daytona 500 scheme that he's running literally as we speak in Daytona Beach, Florida. He is the owner of Freaky Fast Broadcasting, who did broadcast some of the Sunoco Cup Series races a couple of years ago. Big time partner in this series' lore when they needed a broadcaster in hand, when they couldn't have the entire season covered by one network. Robert A. Moyer Jr. and Freaky Fast took portions of the bill and helped out in showcasing the series to the iRacing world. So Robert A. Moyer Jr. there, he is sitting a lap down in 24th, and cool to see a bit of broadcaster to broadcaster recognition here on the racetrack.
I'd love to see it, Kenneth. There one day, a couple years ago, you were looking at those eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series events, hoping you were there one day, and Lord be have it, there you are.
It's awesome to be a part of the Coke Series booth this year. I don't necessarily like to mention it all that much because I don't want to be a show-off or anything, but, you know, I do feel very, very overwhelmed with, you know, happiness. I feel definitely happy that, you know, I got the opportunity to cover one of the biggest series is on the iRacing platform as they continue with 2025. Back to the action, though. Pair of DBR teammates. This is 7th and 8th place. Lawson Peel on the inside of Brandon Banks. Again, Peel started this race back in 21st without setting a qualifying time. And again, cue the Jaws music, Francisco. He's on the way to a top 5 if he can continue to chop off track position.
Slowly working his way there. He's definitely going to be someone to look forward to in this second stage, which the first stage is going to end in about 10 laps or so. And here's the battle for P2. Zachary Hall has caught up to Zachary Rongich, and to the inside, the 23 goes, and he's going to complete the pass on the 38. Relatively easy. He is 1.4 seconds off the lead. Can he get there in time?
He'll look to the inside. He's got the position, though, on Zachary Rongich. So a pair of Zacharys working nose to tail. And that's 2.5 seconds separating Warren Cow-Keith and Hall for the top spot. There are 9 and now 8 laps to go in this race until the end of stage number 1. We'll take a second look at our SK Sim Racing analysis from Phoenix Raceway. And that's the mark you gotta beat. 60 laps, which is enough to make it on fuel and a set of tires. But just like Las Vegas showed us, tires seem to be the biggest and most precious item of use over the course of this race. Fuel doesn't matter until you get to stage 3, and then you got to think about it a little more. But for the most part, think about the Goodyear Eagles and how you can use them to your benefit at the end of the race. Zachary Hall is there. He is creeping up big time. It's nearly 0.3 of a second that Hall was faster than Warren Cow-Keith the last time by. So he's there with 7 laps to go in stage 1.
Yeah, he was just over 0.2 quicker on the previous lap, and look how high the 78 ran there in 3 and 4 on this most recent lap. That's going to cut the gap down to nearly 0.8 of a second, put it at another 4 tenths nearly on the previous lap that the 23 gained on your race leader. With more lap traffic out in front and how high up on the racetrack this 78 is, that 23 is just eating away at that gap and hoping to try and get there before this stage ends. We're going to have a battle on our hands before it's all over. And looking a little bit further back right now, deeper in the field, Kenneth, looks like Lawson Peel's making a move for the P5 position. So moving Lawson Peel now up to P6 rather, just past the 11 of Stephen Harlow. And he's going to soon have an opportunity on the 48.
Yeah, so still plenty of time to get those crucial bonus points again in stages here in this Droppin the Hammah Cup Series. It's similar to how they operate in the NASCAR Cup Series in real life, you will get 10 points plus a couple of more bonus points for the playoffs if you take a stage win. And then it goes all the way down in order until you get 1 point for finishing in 10th. As soon as the 10th place car crosses the start-finish line at the end of lap number 60, in this case for the first stage, then admins will throw the yellow flag on the racetrack. We'll have everyone on pit road making their strategic tire and fuel calls. Zachary Hall is within 0.7 of a second as Warren Kyle Keith creeps up on some more lap traffic. That is Brad Fulham, the Canadian in the 19, sitting 22nd. Then Parker Bland, as she sits 21st. James Kunkel for D-Legacy Motor Club is sitting just inside of the top 20. So still a bit of time for Zachary Hall to make up some position. And as Warren Kyle Keith encounters more of that turbulent air sitting right in front of him, he has to adjust a little more. And like we saw earlier on in this race, Francisco, it took only one lap car for Warren Kyle Keith to overshoot this part of the track. Parker Bland is sideways. She saves it. Warren Kyle Keith to the inside, and Parker Bland still with troubles off the final corner.
And nearly gets into the 38 in the process of trying to save her race car, but she's able to keep it going in the right direction. So we stay under the green now with now 3 laps to go in this stage, and the 23 looking to the inside for the top position.
She is there. Zachary Hall making a move to the inside, possibly just as he can creep to the 78's rear bumper. The track cars in the front and those lap machines still making an impact. Brad Fulham finally getting out of harm's way. And to the final 2 laps of stage number 1, we will have another classic. Hall looking for his first career stage win, and so is Warren Kyle Keith. It'll make it 3rd in a row for a Toyota to have a stage win, as Cedric Hunter had both of the stages in his back pocket at Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago. And coming to the final lap of stage number 1, can Warren Kyle Keith hold on?
Oh, that was a bad place to catch the 42 of Kunkel. If you're the 23, has to back out of that one. That might just give the 78 the breadth of opportunity he needs to hang on here. We'll see if the 23 has anything left as Kunkel gets the wall. And here on the right side of the screen, there's the battle for the final position for stage points. Eric Schaefer and Richard Modritz are going to battle this one out to the line.
They're going to try to get to the start-finish line with a chance at 1 point, but up front, Warren Kyle Keith takes his first stage win from Phoenix Raceway. He's got stage number 1 at lap 60.
And Schaefer in the final corner, can he get to the back of the 71? You see the 71 drifts up the racetrack, but it won't be enough. Modric holds off Schaefer for the final stage point.
That is the 1 point that Modric probably needs to get a bit more momentum in this 2025 season, but Warren Kyle Keith leads the opening 61 and is flawless in his stage victory. And that again makes it the 3rd straight Toyota stage win after Cedric Hunter got both. Warren Kyle Keith had been in position to capture his first at Vegas in the 1.5-mile race. Could not do it. Zachary Hall there with 2nd. Zachary Rongich, who had put some pressure on 04 name at the beginning of this race, is back in 3rd. Cedric Hunter sitting 4th. So Category 5 Esports, Francisco, continues to impress, particularly on these long runs. It feels like they have somewhat mastered the art of tire saving. And here comes the field on pit road this time.
Tire saving is going to get more difficult as this race progresses, of course, Kenneth, because of the track warming up. It was started at about 71, 72 degrees when we took the green flag. It is already up to 81 degrees, so keep looking for that figure to keep rising. As it's just past 8 in the morning here. This race is definitely going to race its way into almost 10 in the morning, local sim time, which we could see track temperatures up in the 90s by then.
So here's the field on pit road, and that is a good point to make because as drivers encountered the tire wear for the first 60 laps, I mean, as this race progresses, it's only going to get more slick out there as the rubber also wears in the track surface, and with the dynamic oval refresh that we had about a year or so ago, maybe a little less than that, there is still the possibility of the lanes to continue to change. Race off pit road, decided quickly. Warren Kyle Keith takes the race lead. Zachary Hall back in 2nd, Rongich 3rd, Cedric Hunter 4th. And how about Lawson Peel taking away P5 with his Drinking Bros Racing teammate? Actually, that is Alex Muscarella peeking in front. So Banks did lose that race off pit road. And is there a penalty for Brandon Banks? He's letting everyone by. I think it is.
Yeah.
Pit road speeding.
Yeah, that usually you get. It's a good tell when you see the car just letting everybody go like that. That's probably because some form of penalty, whether it was entering, exiting, something happened there for the 5 car to relinquish his track position. I'll try to see if I can watch on my end here and see if I can find out exactly what happened in the 5.
And we saw that take place a couple of days ago for the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series, where they had been in a situation where one of the drivers just cooked it up on exit, and it was Lawson Peel, as a matter of fact. So, I mean, you do have that bit of a mistake when you try to get that launch off of the pit box. We'll take a look at it on the right side of the screen. I mean, it's close.
Right there.
It's close. You're getting to that yellow line, and you can go over by maybe 2 miles an hour, and iRacing will dock you for a pit road speeding penalty. So, Brandon Banks
Let's watch the in-car.
Trying to get it. Look at the RPMs to get a better look.
He went up to about 50 or so miles an hour. I was just checking the speed on the HUD, and he went about 54, and he never really slowed it down. So that'll do it for you. That's a pit road speeding penalty on the exit.
So with that penalty, Brandon Banks is one of the last cars on the lead lap. He falls to restart in 19th. Well, off turn 4 to the restart zone. Warren Kyle Keith takes stage number 1. Does he have any more pressure for the next 60? Green flag back in the air from Avondale, Arizona. And Category 5 Esports is already starting to show up. Cedric Hunter to second in turn 1.
And what about the move by Lawson Peel to go 3 wide and move his way up into 3rd? Zachary Hall trying to fight it back. They'll be side for side for P3. And there's Cedric Hunter just behind the 78. He's going to hang on in for the 2nd position as they continue to battle away behind the 45. It is the 9 versus the 23.
As the farthest back in the field, we've seen Zachary Rongich, a race worst 6th off of this restart, just taking a look at exactly how everyone is faring in the trip back to turns 1 and 2, the shallower end of the racetrack. Lawson Peel continues to look to the inside. He hugs the yellow line, and he's got the inside of Zachary Hall. He'll make the move for 3rd, but it's now all on whether Warren Kyle Keith succumbs to the pressure, because Zachary Hall is starting to push forward Lawson Peel and Cedric Hunter, these two that we haven't seen much of all race long, stepping into the top 10 for stage 1. And here comes Hunter to the inside for the race lead.
It's going to be a difficult pass. The bottom is just not there on this end of the racetrack to make moves. Expect the 78 to get the momentum off the corner. He actually does it, and we're going to be 3 wide.
Lawson Peel to the inside. He gets under the Hello Kitty Toyota, but does he have enough to get to the race leader? Out of turn 4, he's there. Lawson Peel looking for the spot.
And Muscarella sideways, and Hunter going, oh, he hit the pit wall.
And he's to the inside. Chris Cabot flirts to the inside wall, makes a pancake hit on the left side of the car, but it's under the racing surface for green. Now we've got trouble. And it's Zachary Hall, Stephen Harlow, and Ross Harlow in it as well.
Oh my, what a sequence of events here. We had about 3 separate incidents go on that particular lap, Kenneth. We have a lot to unfold.
There's Harlow getting back underway, relatively unscathed. Chevrolet Camaro. Cedric Hunter, who went for a slide near the inside of the racetrack. And I don't know what else happened there. It is separate incidents that bring us under the yellow flag this time.
Let's see if we could go one by one, just to kind of make this easy on ourselves.
All right, so here's a look with Cedric Hunter in the fight for the race lead. Lawson Peel looks underneath, and Hunter says, I'll take it 3. He goes to that transition, and I think it's right there, Francisco, which is the situation that got Jason Hastings in trouble. Taps the transition. Hunter saves the race car. Chris Cabot, on the other hand, cannot save the car. And then up in front, we'll see if we can get a better look at that, but that is Zachary Hall into the wall, Zachary Rongich, Justin Erb, and Ross Harlow all getting caught up in our biggest crash of the day.
And there's the view from Ross Harlow, who I was just about to mention was making a great recovery from his lap 1 incident. There's Muscarella getting into the wall after presumably some contact with the 23. The 38 gets a piece of it. The 16 spins down the track. And a couple of brothers get involved in that incident. Just the big one, I guess, at Phoenix.
Here's a look on board from Brandon Banks further back on the road. And you'll get a better look as well of the Chris Cabot incident off of turn 4. You see Hunter up the road getting sideways. Chris Cabot catches a transition as well. He goes hard into the inside wall. And then I think it's right about up the road where Alex Muscarella stacks up Hall, then gets Rongich, then gets Ross Harlow. And Brandon Banks goes the safe decision of heading down pit road.
Yeah, that wall certainly plays a good reason as to why it's so safe. Let's see if we can get the view from Ross Harlow's position. Here you see on board with the 16. And as they go into turn 1, there's Hunter to the left side, and there's the contact between the 23 and the 48. The 38 just doesn't check up for that. There's some contact, some more contact, and around goes the 16, gets clobbered there by the 20 of Herb. And there's another impact right there. So just endless contact going on in turn 2.
And there are the wounded cars in the mess. Ross Harlow on pit road. Presumably some suspension damage on the right front for Justin Herb and his TOW Racing Chevrolet. And with that, we've got a restart upcoming, lap number 72 of 200. Just a reminder that we are going to lap 120 for the end of the second stage from Phoenix. There's Parker Bland as she tries to get her lap back and rejoin the field at the exit of turn 4. Will be a tough task to overcome, though. Lots of distance to cover right before the field gets to the Geico restart zone. But several big-time drivers getting taken out, and that's particularly Zachary Hall, who, like we mentioned, started off strong at Las Vegas, then got into a crash in the middle of 3 and 4. And Zachary Hall not out of this race quite yet, but has fallen back to 9th, possibly still with some damage on the front end of the race car. Green flag waves from Phoenix, and Warren Kyle Keith bobbles on the inside with Alex Muscarella right behind it. Eric Schaefer slides to 2nd before turn 1.
We were just watching Eric Schaefer come up short for the P10 position at the end of the stage, Kenneth, and now he's up in P2.
A wonderful job by both of those Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolets to make a move. I mean, both of these guys started further back in this field. Remember, Lawson did not take a time in qualifying. Eric Schaefer had to work his way up through the ranks, but as soon as we had that caution and those pit stops right before at the end of the first stage, well, Eric Schaefer has made moves, and we've got other drivers in this as well. Kip Easley in the number 8 machine. He stepped into the top 5 for the first time tonight. On board look with his Zone Chevrolet sitting 5th behind Muscarella.
Hey, the real-life Zone machine's running P3 right now. My heart is starting to pound through the roof here.
Yeah, that's 20 laps to go at the World Center of Racing. And, you know, like we talked about earlier in this show, plenty of these drivers probably on their sim rigs, taking a peek at their TV whenever they have a chance to, getting a look at the end of the Daytona 500 that was delayed for rain. It was set to start at around 2 p.m. Eastern, but unfortunately was pushed back due to those showers in the Daytona Beach area. How about Warren Kyle Keith bullying his way back to 2nd, forcing his way under Schaefer through the shallower 1 and 2, makes the move underneath, and now dropping the Hammahs. Alex Muscarella's got to move to the inside.
He missed the bottom, though. That's not going to let him roll that momentum through, and Schaefer's able to keep the P3 position. Actually lets the 8 maybe have a chance at the 48 here as Schaefer looks back to the inside on Warren Kyle Keith, unable to really hold the bottom there. Drifts up with the 78. That's going to actually maybe let them go side by side here. Schaefer gets loose off the corner, but he has the track position on the 78. Will drag him back just enough to keep them side by side. All this going on at Lawson Peel's rear bumper, and looking further back, the 38 of Zachary Rongich continuing, trying to recover his race car. He's battling Richard Modric for the 7th position.
Yeah, remember he had spun there on the most recent yellow and escaped mostly without any damage to his Chevrolet. One of the fastest cars all night long, has yet to lead a lap properly because of Warren Kyle Keith's attempted defense that worked throughout most of the night. But he's now getting into the thick of things because as this pack develops for about 3rd on back, it is getting congested as the traffic builds upwards. Eric Schaefer's continuously fighting with WKK for P2. Then Alex Muscarella trying to fend off Kip Easley on the look to the inside. And then Rongich now taking a peek underneath Richard Swavely for 6th place. And so all of this creating the closest fight we've seen, Francisco, from 1st to 5th all race long. We took a look at how Warren Kyle Keith and Rongich pulled away from the field to the tune of over a 1.5 seconds. Now on this
lead.
one, no one can get away from each other. Here comes Schaefer for P1.
And he clears it. Lawson Peel had a moment there in the trial, most likely to give up that much time and that short of a distance, but now Schaefer, short track driver, loves these short track races, finds himself leading for the first time this evening as there's Kip Easley looking to try and take a podium spot away.
And it's in an effort to get Drinkin' Bros Racing their 2nd stage win of 2025. Kip Easley got a stage win at Daytona. Him, Brandon Banks, and Lawson Peel among those instrumental in those final laps, and obviously could not get it to go at the end of that race where Timothy Stubblefield shocked all and got the W at the end. But Eric Schaefer, who we've yet to see find a good race this season, is making it work 3 wide, and they're banging off of each other easily sideways off of turn number 2, and he saves the race car, keeps it out of trouble. But a very good scare for about everyone in this field. Kip Easley anchors down to 9th place.
Yeah, that 3 wide moment certainly gave us a brown pants moment. Oh, and they're crashing.
Well, it looks like we've got trouble. Is there trouble with Craig Parks, Timothy Stubblefield? I think we are okay, but it's a relatively large group of cars where Kip easily is. That's Richard Modric, who was right there in that 10th starting spot at the beginning of stage number 2 after getting a point in the first one. And then Cedric Hunter, who's working his way through 9th. It appears no trouble to bring us under the yellow flag. And Eric Schaefer continues to lead by 3 car lengths and a bit more. Warren Kyle Keith is giving him his best punch, though, in turns 1 and 2.
We'll see. We saw the 78 do good on the long run, at least in the middle portion of the run. And Eric Schaefer with the clean air for the first time tonight. We'll see what he can do. Lawson Field drifting a little bit further back to the clutches of the 48 of Alex Muscarella. Zachary Rongic has made his way back up into the top 5.
And so the look on board with the Hampton, Virginia native trying to hold on from Warren Kyle Keith's threatening Discount Tire Toyota Camry. That is the company that Warren Kyle Keith does work for. He's an associate manager at his local Discount Tire. And so that's one of the several schemes that we've seen Warren Kyle Keith implement this season. And a driver who had been one of the best in the Sunoco Cup Series, then ended up out of the series for a couple seasons, and is back here with DTH to make some noise, and he's already doing well enough for himself. Has led a majority of this race, got the stage 1 victory, and is trying to do it all over again to become the 2nd straight driver this season to sweep both stages at a racetrack. And he's got a look potentially here on Eric Schaefer for the top spot. And they're taking a look, Francisco, at what he's doing in turns 1 and 2. It's effective. He's in clean air up on the high side, and Schaefer is not exactly playing that defense until now. He's taking notice.
Well, we know that the inside is very difficult to make these passes, so when the 78 gets up there after having played his fair share of defense on numerous drivers who tried to battle him for position, what does he do when he has to try to pass his 3 car? Does he try to make the inside work, or does he try to force the 3 off the bottom, which is easier said than done?
Well, again, Warren Kyle Keith has said to play more defense than offense throughout this race. The only offense he's had to implement was through the lap traffic, which at the end of that stage came in the form of Brad Fulham, who just got out of the way by the time Warren Kyle Keith got up to the Canadian's rear bumper. But in dirty air, first possible challenge for 04 name to make a move either to the inside or outside, and the gap has grown to the total of about 0.3 of a second. That tank slap to the outside wall isn't going to help either. And we'll take a look at 3rd place. That's where Lawson Peel is as the battles continue to separate across this Phoenix Raceway. There's a look on the right side of the screen at Zachary Rongic, who started this race on the front row and had not in the front row, but one of those drivers inside the top 3 to start, and has had a relatively strong race, still trying to move past the Lowe's Chevrolet of Alex Muscarella. Cannot do it, but making a solid recovery drive out of it, sits P5.
And there you see the 38 trying to see if he can get to the outside of the 48. He's going to try the crossover here off of turn 2. He's going to have the momentum, and they're going to be side by side for the position down the back stretch.
And Muscarella has been in this spot before, several moments in this race, especially through the first stage where he's had to be real hard-nosed in making the drivers around work for their position, and there's a bit of right front damage on Muscarella's Chevrolet, so it doesn't necessarily add any bit of insurance here in his play here to defend position number 4. Rongic is still there to the inside, and Muscarella is maintaining that outside lane. That's a great place to halt the car on the inside from making a move. Rongic has to reset and try again as we approach lap number 90 to 30 laps to go in stage number 2 from the virtual Phoenix Raceway. Here's a look from the Hampton, Virginia native of Eric Schaefer. And now at this point, Francisco, he is pulling away nicely, 0.6 of a second and growing. Schaefer, the fastest car in the top 5.
Yeah, this clean air is definitely helping his race car, and the warming track conditions up to 83 degrees now on this run. We're approaching the halfway point in the stage, of course, all the way up to lap 120 is what we're going toward. Eric Schaefer now 0.7 of a second, looking a little bit further back. Zachary Rongic continuing to close the gap on Muscarella. I guess something happened here on the last couple of laps to give the spot back, Kenneth, as we had documented the pass being made, but now Muscarella once again in front of the 38.
Well, yeah, he had made that move, stayed up in front of Ronic and continues this fight. However, there may be some built-up traffic behind because 7th place is Richard Modric, who's a couple tenths behind. Kip Easley, as we mentioned, slightly involved in the tussling to almost bring out a recent yellow. He's back in 8th place, and then Cedric Hunter, who made strides potentially at the beginning of this stage after a mistake through the dog leg, has fallen back to 9th and is just now getting his bearings together. He'll peek to the inside for 8th.
He's going to try to take this one away. He's rolling the bottom a little bit nicely there. And he's had a fast car, so we'll see what Hunter can do after he gets a couple of green flag laps under his belt to get back into a similar position he was before the troubles, to try and make sure he doesn't make that same kind of mistake again. And how about Richard Modric, who's taking it an opportunity in this stage to get some stage points and runs P7 right now behind Richard Swavely. Much needed points for that 71.
And for Modric, in his short Droppin the Hammah Cup Series career, has had plenty of run-ins with other cars, finished 14th at Las Vegas, or rather at Daytona, then a 19th place finish at Las Vegas after starting in 14th. So a pair of top 20 runs for Modric, not necessarily bad in his case, just getting his rhythm together here at Phoenix. And that's what you got to do over the first several races of the season, Francisco, particularly if you're a new driver. We always can argue how quick guys like Lawson Peel or Eric Schaefer or Warren Kyle Keith will be on a given race weekend because they have so much experience racing with each other. Richard Modric is one of those drivers that we see relatively new, did not race in the Sunoco Cup Series' final season together earlier in 2024. And so if you're one of those drivers that either spent some time in the lower-end Xfinity Series beneath the Sunoco Cup campaign, or if you're just a driver taking the track with these guys for the first time, I mean, these first races so important at getting, number one, the vibe together of what it's like racing around this type of competition, but also in your level of performance, how you can get a little more comfortable with the cars, the tracks, and the drivers around you to put up performances that'll give you some well-needed points. And Modric is appearing to have his best race of the season in a top 10 run at the end of stage 1 and a top 10 run right now here at Phoenix, looking on Hunter up front.
And Ronic to the inside again of Muscarella, trying to see if he can make this move again on P4, as there's the 3 of Eric Schaefer catching up to some lap traffic. And the 78 is still about consistently 8 tenths or so behind your race leader. There's Muscarella, who got sideways and into the wall off of turn 2, as a matter of fact, and now the 38 should have this position clear, so some right front damage now will be on that 48 car, as you can see it right here off the corner.
Yeah, several mistakes coughed up by Muscarella, has given up a lot of time, number 1, but is giving up track position, secondly. He still has a bit of a distance back to Richard Swavely, so not the end of the world for Muscarella's Chevrolet, but is in the battle for P4 with Zachary Ronic. That is lost at this juncture of the race, coming to the final 20 before we end stage number 2. So a relatively calm stage this time, at least as we went into the run, Francisco, because I don't know what happened in the first part of it where we had almost everybody crashing out of the race, and we had some scares and plenty of drivers that were involved in some drama. And here's a look at second place. This battle underway. Lawson Peel to the inside of Warren Kyle Keith.
He's going to try to see if he can make this a DPR 1-2, as the 78 actually with a move there to stay in front of the 9 in the corner. So we'll see what Lawson Peel can do in the next handful of corners to regain some forward momentum to get side by side with the 78. We've documented these inside passes are going to be difficult, especially here. He'll get to the inside, but just getting the grip in the corner to be able to complete the pass right here. The 78 just gets this run off the corner. You'll see him power by here on the right side. Lawson Peel unable to really do anything with it, has to tuck back in line.
And as this racetrack has slickened up, as there is a big check up there by Sean Kalis to the outside wall, nearly gets into the barrier there, locked up the right front tire at the braking entry. But yeah, turns 1 and 2, so difficult. You got to be oh so patient on the throttle pedal, especially down low when you hug that yellow line. And where Zachary Hall and several other drivers had made use of the outside lane where you can get a better arc through the corner and you could be full throttle a little earlier, then those guys at the bottom that have to just watch for that outside wall as it creeps up relatively quickly. Lawson Peel has had to play this game, but he's working well so far. He remains to the inside of Warren Kyle Keith's Toyota Camry. All the while, Eric Schaefer, 1.7 seconds ahead of everyone else.
And Muscarella, that damage is starting to catch up to him. He lost the position to Cedric Hunter, and he's slowly being caught by Kip Easley for the 6th position. That right front damage could have some more significant impacts to that car than we're aware of.
Yeah, when you have a right front hit like you do with Alex Muscarella's car, the handling starts to go away quickly. You think about how much tire wear you have on the race car already through this run, but you take a couple shots to that outside wall, all of a sudden the car will just continue to understeer throughout the racetrack, which is almost a death sentence here at Phoenix when you think about how shallow these corners are in comparison to many of the other venues we visit across the year. Battle for second on the left side of your screen. Warren Kyle Keith is loose. He saves the Toyota. Lawson Peel makes it DBR 1-2 with lap 103.
Good move there by Lawson Peel, and Warren Kyle Keith now over 2.5 seconds back into the P3 position. And Cedric Hunter slowly moving up, trying to see if he can make some kind of a run here for P4. And just looking on towards the field, we now have a battle for P10, the final position in for stage points. It's Richard Swavely and Brandon Banks nose to tail.
Saw Brandon Banks at the front of this field earlier on. Had a shot with Lawson Peel and a couple of his teammates. Has fallen back since, and the same goes for Stephen Harlow, who was right in the heart of one of our last incidents to bring out the yellow flag in this portion of the racetrack, turns 3 and 4, where he went for a bit of a spill, encountered relatively no damage to his Chevrolet, but he's still on the move forward against Brandon Banks right in front of him, and that Richard Swavely Hemlock Toyota Camry that continues to remain in 10th place. But I wouldn't say this is going to be the closest fight for stage points, because, I mean, take a look up the road, and you've got Alex Muscarella, who's bleeding off time still. Kip Easley's to the inside now for P6, and then Richard Modric and Craig Parks are in the foreground as well. So, realistically, it's approximately 6 or 7 cars that are in the battle for a range of stage points in the final 15.
And there's Craig Parks, who was in P10, now P9. A quiet run for him. Not too far behind for some more positions. As it's Kip Easley. Actually, trouble for Kip Easley. He's slow. I think he might have an issue on the transition, much like Hunter did earlier, as he was trying to make the move on the 48, and he's going to lose several positions and fall outside of the top 10 in the stage points. We have a replay here.
So another scare for Kip Easley. We saw how he banged off of a race car at the exit of turn 2 and nearly got into trouble. Well, here's a look at how it all happened again, taking a peek to the inside of Muscarella. And I mentioned on the KBueno onboard lap how useful the dog leg is in real estate to make moves to the inside. I didn't mention the caveat of how unsettled this car could get, particularly on the long run. And once more, the dog leg bites another here at Phoenix.
The gap Eric Schaefer's put on the field is incredible. It's up to 2.2 seconds now on his teammate Lawson Peel. There's the 71 of Modric trying to get by Muscarella. Craig Parks will try to get his opportunity here soon enough, as we're now approaching the final almost 10 laps of this stage, Kenneth.
Got to give credit to Modric and Parks, the run that they have put together in this second stage. Modric had gotten that final stage point at lap 60. Craig Parks didn't see much of him throughout this race, but Parks, who finished 21st in his only start of the season at the virtual Daytona International Speedway, is back in it for a second go-around with this DTH Cup Series squad. And here's Muscarella not giving this fight up for P number 6. He's back to the inside, lunging his Chevrolet with a nose in front, but the outside lane is too strong to overcome at the exit of turn 2. Modric will have the advantage down the back straightaway, and Muscarella stays in it. I think Craig Parks may be a little nervous of a bit of contact in the corner, but he's liking the front row look at potential track position he can gain all in one fell swoop. On board with Muscarella, turn 1.
And we'll see what he can do. It's going to be difficult for him to hold on to these positions with the damage on his race car, as especially now that they're stacking up behind him big time. He's going to have to fight for his life if he wants to get any stage points here.
And he's losing so much time to Cedric Hunter. That gap sits at 2.6 seconds and growing. as Muscarella's last lap was a 28.722. Cedric Hunter was 0.3 faster, and that continues the trend, at least it does, throughout the rest of the top 5. There is no man's land where Eric Schaefer is, but it's a good no man's land. He's in the race lead by 2 seconds over his teammate Lawson Peel, who's got a decent gap to Warren Kyle Keith. That's around 2 seconds. And here comes Zachary Rongich, a rivalry renewed. This time, though, it's for 3rd place.
Rongich has had a great recovery, and he's hoping to finish up this stage well, and so is the driver behind him, Cedric Hunter. We're going to have a 3-car battle here for this position.
And Category 5 Esports once again shows up and shows out in the final laps of this stage. It will not be a stage victory as far as we see it, without a yellow flag on track. But for Cedric Hunter, who's at this point trying to carry the weight of the squad now that Zachary Hall was involved in an incident, and he is slowed to a 19th place running order as we sit. Cedric Hunter is going to have to do a lot of the lifting, and he peeks underneath. A diving move, 3 wide for 3rd place.
And they're almost 3 wide. The 45 thought about it, and he's going to back out and let these two settle it out for now. And way up the track goes the 78.
We've seen Warren Kyle Keith take use of that 3rd lane, but not as much there in turn 4, where he's been a little slower. Hunter is peeking through the middle of these 2 cars, and he won't make a move now until the entry of turn 1. Zachary Rongich has been here plenty of times in this race, but he hasn't had to fend off a car on the inside. Hunter is still there. Rongich is making a move. Now the yellow flag is out. Several laps before the stage is over. Who's in trouble?
That might end the stage. Not sure if they'll be able to go green quick enough. Maybe for 1 lap.
There was smoke at the inside of the racetrack, and it might have been Sean Kalist, who was on the speedway entering turns 3 and 4. And he was on pit road last that we looked at him when the yellow flag came out. Yeah, there it is. Kalist just goes hard into the inside wall. I don't know if he lost connection, if his hardware decided to give up, or what. We'll take a second look at this from the peak of Sean Kalist's Chevrolet. And this gets ugly off the final corner.
An update. It got ugly in real life. Ryan Preece has once again flipped at Daytona.
And he goes hard into the wall. He's up and over with a caution inside 5 laps to go. And there's a look at Sean Kalist as he goes into the inside wall. Yellow flag out with 5 laps to go in stage 2.
That is not good deja vu, Kenneth.
And you know, under the rain delay, they had brought a ton of drivers in for interviews on the studio desk. They also had a bunch of interviews with the pit road reporters, Jamie Little, Reagan Smith, and Josh Sim. But they brought Ryan Preece on the desk. Chris Myers had asked him, along with Jamie McMurray, about his flip in 2023 at Daytona during the Coke Zero Sugar 400 race, which is the reason why Daytona decided to completely pave off the inside of the racetrack down the super stretch, and which, you know, had a lot of conversation around it by the time we had the Rolex 24 last month. But Ryan Preece catches air after Christopher Bell gets into him down the super stretch, and the air just takes him sailing off into the turn 3 wall. And if you are watching the real-life Daytona 500, it's inside 5 laps to go with a potential overtime restart. They are still attending the Ryan Preece car, as Eric Schaefer will bring us to 1 to green from the iRacing official pace car from Virtual Phoenix. Schaefer has led a ton of laps already tonight. Lawson Peel 2nd, Warren Kyle Keith 3rd, and then Zachary Rongich, Cedric Hunter bring us the rest of the top 5.
And just quickly there, that could have been a lot worse than what it was, because the rear of his race car almost went up into the catch fence itself mid-corner. So that really was an unfortunate situation for the 60 of Ryan Preece. Fortunate it wasn't nearly as bad as the one from a handful of years ago in the summer race, but he's able to keep this one on the ground more frequently. As we're now going to make our way to the restart zone here, this will be 3 laps to go in this stage with Eric Schaefer and Lawson Peel 1 and 2. What do the teammates do here to race for this win?
It is a shootout for some playoff points at the end of the second stage. It'll be 3 laps to go in stage number 2. Lawson Peel bobbles off the jump. Eric Schaefer's got the upper hand in the move to turn 1. They're nearly 3 wide for third on back. Warren Kyle Keith hold his position, and Schaefer leads him into turns 1 and 2.
He drifts up. Lawson Peel's going to try to take up the bottom.
Here comes Peel to the inside, unsuccessful in his bid for the top spot. Schaefer leads him back to the stripe through 3 and 4. He'll take the white flag in stage number 2. Potentially 2 laps to go actually this time, and Peel nearly got sent into the corner by Keith.
And they were 3 wide for the 10th position. Craig Parks currently holds that position. He is in a heated battle with Casey Knighton, who's now in P11 behind him. This is a battle for stage points right here.
Stephen Harlow there on the inside got bobbled through the dogleg transition. He saves the race car, and we stay green. Coming to the white flag in stage 2.
And we'll see just how aggressive Lawson Peel decides to be over this stage win right here. Eric Schaefer is his teammate at the end of the day, and this is not the race win, but the playoff point could matter as Craig Parks actually goes spinning, and he's going to lose his position in the stage point. He keeps it straight, though. So the battle for P10 is now between the 25 and the 28 as Lawson Peel gets side by side for the lead.
He's looking to the inside, and 2 of the 3 top 3 drivers were in this place at Las Vegas 2 weeks ago. Neither of them could push forward for the race win other than Lawson Peel. And Cedric Hunter got both of the stage wins at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Yellow flag is out, and that will be the end of stage number 2. Eric Schaefer gets the stage W, and Richard Swavely, it appears, gets the final point, finishing 10th.
And unfortunate there for Craig Parks, who had the position at the start of the final lap of the stage, and I believe the transition once again catches somebody out, and yes, it was the transition for the 17, Kenneth. We'll see if we get a look at it on our replay. The 17 was battling Swavely for, it was P9 at the time, and he tries to cut the dog leg, and that's what spins his car out.
Again, this dog leg, dreaded. It's taking everyone out to the inside of the racetrack. There's Craig Parks down low.
Good save.
Again, I think every single driver, Francisco, has saved the race car. None of them have had big issues to completely wipe out the machine. So all of them are in that same boat where they're still going, but they really have a scare time and time again with how that dog leg opens wide up, and everyone is still using it, even on the older set of tires. Field is on pit road at the end of stage number 2. First career stage win for Eric Schaefer, gets the 2nd Drinkin' Bros Racing stage win of the year, following Kip Easley that did it at the first race of the season at Daytona. He's got a pit stall that's several points behind where Warren Kyle Keith is. He parks it in now, and it's up to everyone else to see what they can do. Remember, Brandon Banks had got caught with a pit road speeding penalty at the exit of pit road, coming to that green cone and out of pit lane. Lawson Peel, wonderful pit stop. He gets the lead off pit road in the battle for 2nd. Cedric Hunter's got it.
And it looks like for Peel and everybody that pitted, really for that matter, 4 tires, but nobody really tried something alternative there on the pit lane. As far as those who did pit, we did have 2 drivers not bring it down pit road, which include the 5 of Brandon Banks, your race leader, and the 13 of Parker Bland in the 13.
Not sure whether this is by design or what, but for both of them, they had pitted 7 laps ago. So by the time we had our green flag
really
spin,
just the 3 laps.
Yeah. So both of them are going to stay out here. Relatively fresh tires. And the first time Brandon Banks will lead a race will be here at Phoenix. First couple of laps he'll lead. Parker Bland will roll from the outside of the front row. And then it is all the fresh tire runners behind third on back. Lawson Peel will take that spot to the inside of row 2. Cedric Hunter will have a place on the outside of that fellow 2nd row. And Eric Schaefer, the winner of stage number 2, will be back in 5th. Funny enough to see the stage winners, both of them in today's race, both 5th and 6th on the racetrack in row number 3. So pace car will make its way to the safety of pit road, and it's a long, long wait to the Geico restart zone where Brandon Banks will bring this field underway for the final stage. We go a little under 80 laps to the checkered flag if we can get there. We've seen some calamity and some messiness already. Do we see a bit more as the drivers yearn for a checkered flag this season? Two cars on 8-lap old tires up front. Brandon Banks and Parker Bland to the green flag restart at lap 125.
And the 13 struggles to get power going. Cedric Hunter to the inside. Eric Schaefer almost peaked at 3 wide. Oh, and there was a lockup there for the 38 who almost gets into the back of the 78. They're able to get through turns 1 and 2 clean. They're 3 wide momentarily with Alex Muscarella a little bit further back as Cedric Hunter now looks for P2 on Lawson Peel.
Hunter had a phenomenal exit off of the second corner as Lawson Peel had got his left side tires on the apron. First bit of apron action we've seen all day long from Phoenix. Hunter makes the move to the inside. He's clear of the Chevrolet for second place.
And the 38 making a move to the inside of Warren Kyle Keith. Eric Schaefer now to the inside of Parker Bland's machine. Off of turn 2, here they approach. You see some bigger moves also being made further back. There's Muscarella to the inside of Kip Easley for the spot there. Muscarella making contact with Kip Easley, forces the 8 up the racetrack.
And Bland, the Manchester, New Hampshire native, is in a whirlwind of messy race cars. Schaefer to the inside, Rongich down low. Now Warren Kyle Keith playing it safe. Bland is sideways in 1 and 2. Will she save it? No, she won't. To the outside wall and bringing us another yellow flag at lap 127.
And that's the toughest thing to predict about these race cars is when will the front tires grip and catch and overcorrect the race car. With this car, for some reason, it's just so difficult to judge when the car will do that, which is what makes it so difficult in saving a race car. And here's the replay just to see what happened to her.
And just fully sent it into the corner, was sideways right before she got to the apex. And in the attempt to save her Toyota Camry, ultimately it ends up in trouble. Fortunately, no one else got involved in this, but here's a look with Bland on the outside.
I think, yeah, right around here, just under braking, looks like she was sideways with no outside help, and then right there, boom, just overcorrects.
And everyone had cleared the racetrack to the inside. No one was up top by the time Bland overcorrected into the wall. So thankfully, Bland is the solo car involved in the incident. No one else tallies forward to pick up some more damage, but she will join 4 cars. That is 3, including her. All of them Toyota Camrys with damage. There's Zachary Hall, Chris Cabot. All of those drivers had faced trouble throughout this race. Lots of them had very fast cars to start, Francisco, but like we've seen over the season, whether it's Daytona, Vegas, or tonight, the run you have in stage 1 or stage 2 isn't going to describe the rest of the race and will not tell you the fate for the checkered flag running, because Zachary Hall found it happened to him 2 weeks ago at Las Vegas. It happens to him again. And then Parker Bland on 7 to 8 lap old tires had survived through the top 5 up until the mess there just getting loose in turn 1.
And nobody else really got any piece of that, so that doesn't really change what we are looking at as far as the outlook right now. But what does this do now for the rest of this race? Looking at the fuel window here, this could be close on fuel mileage between just really for the whole stage. Maybe they can go all the way, no problem. But either way, fuel could play a role in this final stage. You see it on the graphic there, 80 laps, which is now for this restart going to be 70 laps to go when they go across the line to take the green flag. So fuel could be a concern here if they go green flag. We eventually do get long runs here. We've seen this tonight. So if they go green, are they going to stay in 5th gear, which you really don't get to 5th gear unless you're approaching turn 1.
Yeah, with the way this car is set up, you are at the top end of 4th gear entering the first corner, and then, I mean, you're in 4th gear. That back straightaway is so short in comparison to the rest of this track. You don't get to use it often. Some drivers even like to shift it down to 3rd over the long run when they get into the low rev range of 4th gear as the tires wear down. But hoping for another yellow, this field is, if they want to square this race off on strategy. And it's Brandon Banks who will lead us back to the stripe with under 70 laps to go. Lawson Peel on the outside to give some support. Green flag back in the air, and the paulscars.com Chevrolet with a solid jump. DBR 1-2-3 back to the first corner.
And a good restart for Banks there, and Schaefer to the inside of his teammate. Should get ahead of Lawson Peel off the corner. Peel doesn't get the run off, and now. Schaefer clears for P2. You see the move further back, the 48 of Muscarella and Kip Easley side by side again.
And Easley had been in this position at the exit of stage 2. Muscarella had bled off a ton of time, but now with relatively fresh Goodyear Eagles on the shoe of the race car, it can make sense for Muscarella to push forward again to gain some of that lost track position. Schaefer flirts with the high side and nearly into the outside wall, but gets the run off turn 2 to stave off any momentum gained by Lawson Peel. And finally, Zachary Rongich is saying, I want a podium. To the inside he goes for 3rd place in turn 4.
And James Kunkel's having a slow recovery up to the front, got lapped earlier in this race, and is currently trying to battle the 32 of Richard Swavely for a position inside the top 10. So from being lapped in stage 1 to battling for the top 10, what a turnaround for the 42.
The first driver for D Legacy Motor Club to make an imprint up front. Dakota Curtis is not in this race tonight, and we saw Parker Bland make that move to the outside wall where she resulted our first caution flag in a little while from Phoenix Raceway. But Kunkel has had a calm race so far. Started this one pretty far back in 16th place, but has since been able to slightly move up through the field. But again, the pack of race cars is very difficult to get by, and we've already noted tonight, Francisco, just how difficult it's been to make a pass on one car, let alone 4 or 5 down the stretch.
And you see just mostly single file through the front portion of the field as we're starting to get into this run, as the tires are starting to wear. Brandon Banks with this clean air could possibly get away with this. We see the clean air have done a good job on everybody so far, whether it's been Schaefer, Warren, Kyle, Keith. We'll just see what has to unfold here as the run progresses.
We haven't seen much of a tire discrepancy amongst the field because those first 2 stages didn't rely heavily on tire differences and alternative strategies. This is the first real time we see anyone stay out from pit road and elect to stay out on those older tires, albeit Banks and Bland were only on 7-lap old tires, so the difference isn't exactly that grand. And at a surface like this Phoenix Raceway that was revitalized and is not as abrasive as it used to be in the old times from the sim, when the start-finish line was on that back straightaway instead of where it is here off the final corner where that LED cactus neon sign is at. I mean, you've got a situation where you can afford to stay out and remain up front. Look at the send by Eric Schaefer, though. That made up about 2 car lengths in the matter of 100 or so feet. Schaefer is trying his best to get by his teammate and levy this up, but unfortunately not the case, although he's there.
And breaking news, William Byron has gone back-to-back in the Daytona 500, dodging that last lap crash. They let them race back to the line, so he goes 2 in a row into Daytona 500. And how about Jimmy Johnson, Kenneth? He finishes 3rd.
Unbelievable. Wow, okay. Well, that's good news. I was so worried about Jimmy Johnson because, you know, the struggles that he's encountered in his Cup Series career since making a return to the series after his retirement. But great stuff there for Jimmy. Great stuff there for Byron. Gets the 2nd straight W at the World Center of Racing in the 500 for Hendrick Motorsports. And we've got 3 Chevrolets up here fighting for the top several spots. Zachary Rongich in the Dale Jr. paint scheme from about 2014 is starting to make waves to the inside. He peaks on Schaefer potentially in the fight for 2nd.
Just easing his way there is the 38. We saw him be fast in the opening run of the race, struggled in that 2nd stage, but is slowly starting to catch up, and he's already ahead of the competitor he was racing against in that 1st stage. But what can he do against Schaefer and Banks? Just remember, Banks is on slightly, and I mean slightly older tires than everybody else, but it should equal out at some point given the fact that he only has 3 additional green flag laps on everybody else.
And just like Schaefer, Rongich is using the exact same line on the outside of 1 and 2. While they haven't been able to fully get by Brandon Banks, they are still creeping up inch by inch. The lap difference is not that apparent between these two. I mean, Schaefer did set a 27.9 just the last time they crossed the start-finish line, but as they cross now, all of them evened out at 28 flats in the middle of dirty air. The fastest car in the top 5, that belongs to Lawson Peel, 27.961. So for Rongich, he is still in place to make an effort here for the top spot, but he still has not been able to do it. As one of the faster cars throughout the entirety of this session, fastest in practice, has debuted a lot of great stuff already in his first DTH Cup Series start. I mean, we saw this a bit, Francisco, earlier on in the week with Gabriel Dahari, how he was able to fend off such an experienced racer and Brandon Hawken for his first career 4-wide win in his first start. And Zachary Rongich is already proving any doubters wrong and impressing a ton in his first race.
And Banks holding on strong for now, but this pressure soon he's going to start feeling it shortly as Eric Schaefer continues to pounce, and he's actually looking to the inside for the number 3.
He goes to the bottom end of the racetrack through the dogleg, trying to peek to the inside. He potentially has a move. They make contact a bit in the middle of the corner. Does Zachary Rongich have a statement for the two Chevrolets up front? The answer for now is we'll wait for it. Eric Schaefer remains to the inside of his teammate, Brandon Banks, in search of the race lead. Schaefer, the Stage 2 winner, wanting a bit more on the racetrack. Cannot get it out. Turn 4, we're still even.
And the 3 got loose there just a little bit. That's going to allow the 38 to maybe try to get to the outside of him. Schaefer doesn't fill the gap up, so Rongich now, with the opportunity to get into P2 using the outside, he's going to try to get the run off the corner.
And as the top 3 battle, look who's sitting back in 4th place. The blue and yellow Chevrolet of Lawson Peel, even further back on the road. The white, red, and black Toyota of Warren Kyle Keith, Stage 1 winner. All of them are wrapped in by at least a second. So any one of these drivers has an opportunity to take the top spot away should there be a tango up front. Schaefer again with a bottom end dive at the inside of turn 1. He'll look up high on Brandon Banks, unsuccessful in his bid for the race lead, but he's got a big
look at that run.
Gargantuan look. Down low, Eric Schaefer for the race lead.
And he drives it in deep. The 5 is going to give him the lane. He drifts up the track. Banks might get a run off the corner here, but Schaefer now has the position he wants. Banks goes back to the inside. Will be side by side for turn 1.
Is there a response from Banks? He's there at the inside of 1. But remember how tough it is to make a move at the inside of this corner at the shallow end of the speedway. Banks is still there. Schaefer with the run off the corner. Banks saves it. He's got second, and Schaefer now clear by car length.
Oh, and he gets pressured into turn 3. Here comes the Rongich to the inside now of Banks.
Rongich looking down low. He's been one of the faster cars all night long. A peek on board from Schaefer to the left. Rongich's look on the right.
You see, he wants the outside. He doesn't want to lose too much time to Eric Schaefer on this run. Good, and there's Lawson Peel to the inside.
Well, Lawson's giving it his shot. Remember, we said 4th and 5th place are still within striking distance. And once you go side by side here at Phoenix, that results in plenty of lost time. Now Warren Kyle Keith is stepping into the mix. He had a look on the outside in turn 3. But Eric Schaefer says, bye, bye, bye. I'm out of here if y'all going to keep battling for it like this. Coming to 50 laps to go.
How about that? An in-sync reference. I would have never expected that.
Well, got to get a bit of Justin Timberlake in there. But Schaefer...
We're old now, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. I mean, I've been referenced as Unk several times by you and plenty of other of our friends from KBRN. But Eric Schaefer is definitely waving bye to the rest of this group for sure, as Zachary Rongich is taking another look, second chance possibility at Brandon Banks for second place. I mean, the gap hasn't grown to at least over a second, but 0.4 of a second is a little breathing room for Schaefer to start working here on pulling away. But remember, Francisco, you're on that situation of the bubble, potentially with the fact of tire strategy, how that could play a mix in all of this as we stay green.
Well, there's not really too much difference in the tire strategy as far as when they pitted, just how do they go about saving these tires. The clean air certainly is a huge factor, as this top 5 is kind of broken away from 6th place Alex Mascarella. But watching what the 38's doing, Kenneth, he's not trying to make that bottom pass on the 5 car at all. If he's going to make this pass, it's going to be on the outside, because he is willing to give Lawson Peel a chance at his inside, but not really do much on that inside lane compared to Brandon Banks. As Banks actually goes deep into the corner, that should allow the 38 to once again get a run, but he's not going to take the inside. He is more than willing to take the outside. On his bumper they are, 3x3x3. There's contact. Banks goes sent into the corner.
And Peel has to evade the action there on the inside of the racetrack. He may get second out of this. We're 3 wide. And Lawson Peel's got the move to the bottom. Zachary Rongich is still there. And somehow they flush down Banks' Chevrolet to make it door-to-door for second. Drinkin' Bros Racing trying to remain in control of this race with under 50 laps to go. And while Peel has not been in attempt to catch the race lead yet, he's always been in at least second or third, although he loses the fight to Rongich in turn 1.
Let's get a quick look of what happened there, because this somehow worked out great for Rongich. Here's off of turn 4 when he gets that run on Banks, and he, once again, just doesn't want the inside. Lawson Peel gets up on his bumper, so they're now all in a line, and there's the bump. Peel sees that, goes to the flat, basically runs that Kevin Harvick line. Rongich takes the outside, which is what he wanted all along, gets enough grip to get around Banks, and stays on the outside of Peel and uses that to launch himself clear of the 9 car.
And that's exactly, Francisco, the line he's been using all race, alongside Warren Kyle Keith and even Eric Schaefer as he's taking control of this race late in the going. That tertiary lane has not lost grip, even though we've gone 153 laps and this track temperature has exceeded expectations. 90 degrees now on the track surface. The winds are now blowing to the southeast at 2 miles an hour. And it's not a big difference from the drop of the green flag, but it is still an increase regardless. And as they have put that rubber on the very top lane near the outside wall, if you're anyone down low like Lawson Peel has been for most of this night, I mean, you're looking at a dead end whenever you try to look underneath in turns 1 and 2. The outside lane surprisingly being so dominant. I guess just as surprising, Francisco, as we've seen at tracks like Texas, people using the 3rd lane in 3 and 4, something we wouldn't expect to see, but something that is fast for the drivers and they're using it.
I'm actually not surprised the outside's being that fast here, Kenneth. We've been to Phoenix before, and you could use that 3rd lane really to a good advantage. We've seen that before in previous leagues, so this is nothing new and nothing surprising. At least not to me, it's not. And it's actually a really great tool for defense and making passes, and we've seen it used to that extent here tonight. As Muscarella has an issue off 4, is able to keep it going. He lost the spot to the 11 of Harlow, and now is under fire from Kip Easley, who looks to his inside. That's the battle for P7. Brandon Banks has fallen back to P5. Warren Kyle Keith just barely in front of him in P4. As it's everybody kind of evenly spread out for now, as Zachary Rongich hoping that Schaefer doesn't get too far ahead of him inside these final 50 laps.
Well, luckily the gap hasn't grown that long. I mean, we saw Schaefer earlier in this race had a gap to the tune of 2 seconds back to his own teammate Lawson Peel. But this time he's only been able to extend his gap to 0.6 of a second. That's as far as he's gone, but he yet has not been able to fully push forward and make this a full-on dominant run to the finish. Francisco, we've got a word. There's a driver down pit road. It's the Hemlock Toyota of Richard Swavely.
He has just brought it down the pit road. I caught him when he was dropping down the order, and he was on the pit road entry. I'm not sure if this is a scheduled stop, an unscheduled stop, but the case is he's looking like he's taking 4 tires, and he's going to head back out there. So I'm wondering if he was sure that he wasn't going to get to the end of the race on fuel and just decided to get an early jump on fresh tires to make up some position.
The only problem is, with a track this short, he's already a lap down, and he's going to have to hope that either a yellow flies for him to get a lucky dog, or that the field comes down pit road relatively soon, because Swavely will have the fresh tires. He can cut through the field and potentially unlap himself, but it's a game of distance when you've got a bulk of the field still without a call down pit road entering the final 40. And if you're any one of these guys at the front, is there a perfect sweet spot time to come in on pit road to give yourself enough time to blend back in, as Warren Kyle Keith has called for pit road at lap 159?
It always depends on when someone pits, and I think this is the benchmark right here. Warren Kyle Keith bringing it down pit road. He's going to be at least a second and a bit faster than everybody else when he exits the racetrack. The question is, how quickly do they counteract his strategy by bringing it back down pit road? As there's Lawson Peel looking to the inside of Zachary Rongich. We'll see if nobody of the leaders has decided to bring it down pit road for now, at least. And so Warren Kyle Keith for now looking to try and make the strategy work out for him, which he was running P4, Kenneth, so if they wait too long, this actually could work out in his favor.
And this is going on roughly 78, 77 laps on a stint. If you go all the way, if you are Rongich, Peel, Schaefer, all these guys that have spent the bulk of this race up front, especially as of late, Rongich a bit loose there of turn 2, nearly hip check Lawson Peel and made it a calamity point at the exit of that second corner, but they continue straight. I mean, I don't know. It will seem very interesting to see what Warren Kyle Keith does, because he's the first strong driver today to make a move on pit road. Almost looked like Stephen Harlow might have peeked down there to potentially come down pit lane as Lawson Peel takes away second. But again, no flinches from anyone inside this top 5. So Warren Kyle Keith is throwing the kitchen sink out there and saying, if there is nothing that's going to transpire for the rest of this race, I'm going to give it my shot and try this risk. We'll see if it works.
And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that you mentioned the risk of the caution flag, as there's a slow car that they just went by there. Believe that could have been the Not sure if it was the 18 or the 19 of Brad Fulham, possibly, that was on the inside there, slow. But the risk you have with the caution coming out and being stuck one lap down means you lose your track position, even though the 78 has the free pass spot currently. If you're on the lead lap, at least you can cycle up to the lead by staying out or something of the sort. But if it runs green flag, Kenneth, that's the strategy you have to run. We've seen it plenty of times when we show up here at the Phoenix Raceway in real life. Guys will try to split the stages that we run there, but they're obviously not too afraid of the yellow flag risk because it's usually a consistent strategy. I think the sim is a little bit different because you might not trust your competitors as much as you would a professional.
You probably wouldn't, and you know, anyone could, to make a move here, anyone could do anything at this portion of the race with the strategy. I mean, you can't really bank on some drivers keeping it clean if you come down pit road. I mean, how many times have we seen drivers get loose in that exact point of the racetrack that Harlow just crossed, the transition through the dogleg? It could take, you know, an army to come down there, and still you'll have most of them get a bit loose there on old tires. And so you run the risk of a yellow coming out. Warren Kyle Keith has evaded that situation, though. He's the lucky dog driver, still a lap down, but running in 18th place. And as of lap 166 at the line, still no takers down pit road from the top 5. The only real shift is Zachary Rongich moving down position. He continues to fall short. He may end up behind Brandon Banks for P5 if his trend continues here. Pretty desperate fall off here for Rongich, and I believe it's the moment right there off turn 2, which is what's hampering him the most. Car is overstepping now on the old tires.
And Harlow's running slightly, and I mean slightly quicker lap times than your top 2 right now, trying to eat away at that gap. So this 11 car closing his way at the front of the field. And right now, Warren Kyle Keith is not too far behind your race leaders before he eventually unlaps himself the old-fashioned way.
There's a look on board from the Columbus, Mississippi native of Lawson Peel. Winner from the last race at Las Vegas, looking to attempt a 2 in a row. And he's got the lap car Cedric Hunter there on the inside, so no worries about track position from the pink car down low. But it's that white, blue, and red Chevrolet in the distance, Stephen Harlow, that can make an imprint here as the gap has closed down between the top 2 drivers. Remember, Eric Schaefer had gotten out to at least 0.6 of a second. It's down to half a second. And with this lap car and Hunter that will get around, Schaefer will step into dirty air momentarily, coming to 30 laps to go.
And the question is how much fuel do they have left? Can they go all the way? Because if they have the fuel to get all the way, then that would explain why they're not stopping. But if you don't have enough fuel, then how much are you really willing to let the 78 gain on you by staying out this long? Or are you waiting until he gets unlapped, in which case you have to come down pit road? Otherwise, he's going to have such a big advantage that no tire offset can offset that with how few laps you'd have left to try and catch back up.
Well, here's the Charlie Byer Photography onboard camera with Schaefer to give us a better idea of what's going down. And he is shifting down to 4th rather late in turns 1 and 2, but no signs of saving gas at any point of this racetrack. Schaefer is running business as usual, and we can imagine the same is for everyone else in the midst of this top 5. None of them have made any considerable moves to slow down to make an effort at saving until the end. So I think, Francisco, your idea may be more right than others in the case that these guys probably can make it all the way to the end, and with the most recent yellow flag, probably had enough in the tank to save some extra gas behind the pace car and make an effort, because 30 laps, they can make it probably on fuel if they are sure. Tires, though, going to be the biggest point of discussion, as we noted earlier on tonight.
Yeah, I expect the 78 to unlap himself, but he obviously doesn't have enough time to go around the racetrack once again and get past these guys without some kind of help. But it just makes me wonder what the situation is inside these race cars. It doesn't say exactly if it's 100% fuel, if it's 90, if it's 80. It was different for Daytona, but I believe it might have been just for the duel. If it is the full capacity that these cars can have, they should be good to go to the end of the race. The ones closest on fuel from that mark will, of course, be the 13 and the 5, as we now have a battle for P2. Harlow to the inside of Peel.
So Harlow has been patient this entire run. He takes a look down low and could not make it happen through the dogleg, so he'll be back at least another 10th. As Zachary Rongich is finding himself under pressure, there's Warren Kyle Keith to the inside. That is not for track position, though. Warren Kyle Keith is still in this path to unlap himself, sitting 18th on the racetrack, but it will pull Brandon Banks within a bit of a distance to catch up to Rongich and make this a proper battle. There is a battle, though, building up between 3 of the D-Legacy Motor Club Toyota Camrys. We mentioned Parker Bland, like you said, a bit behind on the strategy, along with Brandon Banks. There are 7 laps behind the leaders on strategy. And then there's Casey Knight in that 28 car back in the background. And then the 42 of James Kunkel. All 3 of them running 8th, or rather 9th, 10th, and 11th as we see it. And still a bunch of cars around them too. Zachary Hall sitting 12th, looking under Kunkel now for 11th.
And this 23 was fast earlier, got involved in one of the spins, and has kind of been on the back foot ever since. He's going to be hoping to get away from this race with a top 10 finish as he gets around the 42 of Kunkel. Has to catch up to the 28 of Knighton before he can say he's in the top 10 spot, as now the 78 of Warren Kyle Keith is on the back bumper of Eric Schaefer, looking to unlap himself, and he gets around him.
There he goes to the inside. Will that affect Schaefer's momentum here off the corner? Because now Lawson Peel's within 3/10, close as we've seen him all green flag run long. And then that Stephen Harlow machine patiently waiting in 3rd. Possible opportunity for a 2-for-1 pass on both of the Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolets, who have dominated the second half of this race, as we'll pick up 24 laps to go. From Phoenix, still looking at what the strategy could affect here at the end of this race, but only 2 main takers on pit road. Swavely the first, Warren Kyle Keith the second. And now that old 4 name has unlapped himself, Francisco, he needs a yellow flag, and it could even him out with the rest of the field on tires, because at this juncture, everyone would come in. But Schaefer has to more so worry about the track position that he may lose at this end of the speedway. Lawson Peel is there within 2 car lengths in turn 3.
Both of those cars have slowly been closing in on your leader, and I mean slowly. It has taken lap after lap of just working at it away slowly but surely, but they're going to accordion up here and battle away, a 3-car battle for this win, as Kip Easley has found himself now up into P5. He's past the 38 of Zachary Rongich and is looking to try and see if he can take P4 away from Brandon Banks. As you saw, Peel get sideways massively off of turn 2, and that's going to give the spot up to the 11.
First massive mistake that we've seen from Lawson Peel through this run, and Harlow makes easy work of the 3-time Sunoco Cup champ. Harlow still in his search for his first career victory with this group, and he is within those 3/10 from Eric Schaefer. We'll get a look at what happened with Peel, and I think it might have been just transferring across those seams, Francisco. It's kind of like crossing oceans. Sometimes you may have some calm seas, sometimes it's a little rocky. For Peel there, just happened to step out just a little bit at the exit of turn 2, and Harlow made the use of it on the outside.
And it doesn't take much. Just a little bit will do it, especially like I've commented before with the diffuser on this car. If you get it too far out there, it will spin out. So Peel was able to catch it before it got too far out of control and hangs on to P3, and is still close enough to this battle. He's definitely not out of this one yet, approaching 20 laps to go, but Harlow certainly looked like the faster of the trio, and now gets to mount the pressure on the 3-car of Eric Schaefer. And I'll tell you what, Kenneth, that 9-car, I think he encountered some wake turbulence there off the corner, a little bit of wind shear.
Oh, I don't know. Well, will the next car in line have to watch out for that wake turbulence? I don't know.
Maybe he has to go around.
Maybe, but Eric Schaefer has been in the same problem as well. Even though he's in clean air, the last lap or so, Schaefer had been loose right here, and again the car slightly steps out. And it's minimal. You're making minimal adjustments behind the wheel of the race car, but if you cannot keep this car straight, particularly the next gen with all of those features at the underbody of the race car, it will lose you time and will lose you a couple miles an hour off the corner. And with a guy like Stephen Harlow hot on the presses, looking to make a move either down low or up high, any one of those small mistakes through those seams in the middle of the corner can get Harlow the run. And here he is to the inside. He may match Schaefer's pace at the exit of 2. He does. Battle for the race lead with 19 to go.
He didn't let Schaefer get the arc on the corner X that he wanted, and they make slight contact there. And the 11's going to stay lower on the racetrack, trying to use this cutting of the dog leg here to gain him an advantage. He might try the dive bomb here in turn 1 to clear this 3-car. We'll see what happens, and Schaefer drives it in hard as well.
Schaefer's up the racetrack. Remember, he bleeds off the time at the apex. He's looking for all of that speed and momentum off the corner, to which he does, and hard on the wall goes Lawson Peel. overcorrected it off the corner, and the Mississippi native will be right at the eve of the yellow flag that's thrown for Canadian Brad Fulham on the apron.
Just as the lead battle was getting interesting, I believe Schaefer was ahead at the time of caution. The 19 of Brad Fulham, who we noted a little bit earlier for being slow on the racetrack, brings out a late caution flag here. And we'll see exactly what happened to bring out this caution flag. He was running in the 13th position behind James Kunkel there, and I believe just gets sideways off the corner and spins out off the racing surface, but enough for iRacing to bring out the caution as we're going to have the money stops here, Kenneth. They're on pit road.
The native of Winnipeg gets involved in this incident as Lawson Peel tank slaps the wall, and we get our most recent yellow flag inside 17 laps remaining. Here are the leaders on pit road, to which I ask you, Francisco, does anyone take 2 tires?
Oh boy, with the track conditions continuing to warm up, Kenneth, I'm not too sure if 2 tires is going to be the way to go, especially with how many laps they ran. We saw 2 tires work out for Brandon Banks, but that's or with somebody that took 2 tires earlier, but that's because of the few laps under green that they had. But now with with the 50+ laps that they put on these tires, it has to be 4 tires all the way around, and it looks like that is the consensus. I think Muscarella might have taken 2 because he's now second.
Man, Muscarella, 9-second stop, overshot his pit box, but still escapes with second off pit road. And it's Brandon Banks who beats Stephen Harlow to the bell for P4.
And Robert Moyer stays
Jr. will stay out. Well, he'll come down pit road now on a second guest call, so Schaefer will have the race lead. Muscarella on a risky call takes second, Brandon Banks third, Stephen Harlow fourth, and Zachary Rongich to fifth as Lawson Peel, who made that dear mistake at the exit of turn 2, waiting on pit road with suspension damage. That right front, it is bent all lot away.
I bet he's happy that he has that win now, just to make his whole situation about the playoffs a lot easier. When you have that win already in the bank, you don't have to worry about the points. Just go out there and try to win races, and this will probably take him out of contention for the win, but he's still going to go out there on the racetrack, so you never really can count him out until that checkered flag waves. But how about this? We got Muscarella with 2 tires there on this call, so we'll see what that does for him on this restart, how chaotic it is for him. Everybody else on 4 tires, and particularly Stephen Harlow, who we saw being contentious there at the end of that run.
So we'll get another restart, this time with 14 laps to go. And in our last 2 races, we have had a restart inside this margin. Many of them have ended in overtime. Just like we did at Las Vegas, that race ended with a 2-lap to go restart. And it changed leaders' hands. It gave Lawson Peel the victory at the end over Steven Stempian. And once again, another Drinkin' Bros Chevrolet is in the scene with a chance to win this deal, should we not get another yellow. Eric Schaefer underway, 14 laps to go. Muscarella gets out of the way. He is letting the entire field through, and Drinkin' Bros Racing has 1-2. There's a spinner down low. It may be James Kunkel. He saves it, and we stay green.
What a save by Kunkel, and there's Brandon Banks clear for second. Zachary Rongich moves his way up into third. He's not going to be out of it. They're almost 3 wide, a little bit further back, it appears, as the 17 of Craig Parks tries the battle for a top 5 spot.
Remember that Brandon Banks had been on the opposite end of the strategy in our last green flag run, and here he is in the battle for second. Now Stephen Harlow peeks in. There's a loose Zachary Rongich. He's spinning across the speedway, and James Kunkel gives him a hell of a shove out of the air. And Zachary Rongich is out of the race. Huge crash to bring us a yellow inside 13 to go.
And that impact that Rongich had there on the front straightaway looked very similar to what led to Priest's flip just a couple minutes ago.
And it was the loose Rongich who got out of shape. There were several other cars in there as well. So this is a better look from the high angle. And it's Rongich who steps out right before the transition, hits the inside wall. He comes back up the racing surface. And there's James Kunkel. Oh my goodness.
Oh, that was a hard hit.
And for the first time, Rongich in trouble. It takes him out of this race 5 seconds after he steps out the race car. Here's a look from Kunkel. This one will not be pretty at the exit of turn 4.
And Kunkel had his issues on the previous lap, which put him back here to begin with, this far back that is. There up there is the loose 38 machine, hitting the pit wall, which is what sends him back up the racetrack. Tried to hold his brakes as much as he can, but of course the car had too much momentum. 42 really could not do anything different there in that situation.
I mean, at that moment, he's believing that Roglic is going to come up the track further, and he's staying on the racing surface to evade any transition trouble under braking. And then Roglic is locked up there in the middle of the track. There's nothing that Kunkel could do in those few seconds to get out of the way. He veers to the left, and you can hear from his onboard camera, he slows down in the attempt to try to minimize the harm, but he absolutely destroys the rear bumper of Zachary Rongic's car. And in his first start, Roglic will suffer a DNF and will join the long list of other casualties in this race. 22nd on back. Roglic will be several more laps down, and we will try to end this one under 10 laps to go and try to evade another yellow flag. So, Francisco, great restart, though, for Stephen Harlow, who made that move right on the outside of Roglic as things were going haywire and almost about tallied on to Brandon Banks' car sitting second. What do you see out of Harlow here in these final laps? Because over the long run previous to that yellow, he was one of the fastest cars on the racetrack. Just could not get around Schaefer via the bottom.
Well, I was going to say it depends on which line Schaefer takes, and Schaefer takes the bottom, so that gives Harlow an opportunity to work on Banks for P2 and make this a battle between himself and Schaefer. And it also puts Craig Parks in the line as the leader. How about Craig Parks, Kenneth? Who's running P5 right now? He is having the run of a lifetime right now inside the top 5. If he can bring it home there, that'd be fantastic for that 17 machine.
The Lansing, Michigan native can get a great finish here at the end as long as he holds put. But there are still 9 laps left to decide this thing, and plenty of drivers that are in the mix. Not that hefty of a field count. At this juncture, several drivers are trying to catch up. By the time they get back to the restart zone, they should be okay as the field paces around, waiting for the jump from Eric Schaefer. Drinkin' Bros Racing has both cars on row number 1. Stephen Harlow and Alexander Muscarella, 2 of the DTH Chevrolets, sitting back in the second row, waiting to respond. Here comes Schaefer to the green flag. 9 laps to go.
48 once again has an issue on the shifting because he gets the launches down right, just has an issue changing gears and getting going as Warren Kyle Keith on the outside of the 17 trying to get that position, but Muscarella is there as Schaefer has a couple car lengths on Brandon Banks. Harlow behind Banks trying to see if he can do something to take away P2 as Muscarella locks up, so does Parks. They're almost making contact. Warren Kyle Keith gets sent up the track by the 17.
They make the contact in turns 3 and 4. Now there's a crash. Hard into the wall goes Parks and Warren Kyle Keith. The yellow flag waves again. And for the second straight time, the problem persists through the dog leg.
And just as the 11... Out. Oh, look at the smoke rolling out of that 78. Not a good sign. And that was just as the 11 was making the move for P2 on Banks. But Banks keeps the second place spot. And this started all the way back here, entering turn 3. The 48 and the 17, they both lock up. That kind of forces the 78 to have to go wide in all of this. You see the contact right here between the 17 and the 78. Sends both of them up the racetrack. And then right there, well, I'm not sure, Kenneth. That looks like the 78 may have just turned into the left there. Let's see if we can get an onboard look of the 78 to see exactly what happened here.
So here's where they make the contact initially. And I don't know if Warren Kyle Keith thought that Parks was going to use the dog leg. But Parks stays where he's at. He holds his line, and Warren Kyle Keith goes down the racetrack. They make the contact, and they both go heavy into the outside wall. So both of them will be taken out. Warren Kyle Keith, the stage 1 winner. Craig Parks in search of a top 5. Both of them eliminated with 7 laps to go. We'll see if we can get a word with Warren Kyle Keith just before we get this caution flag done and dusted. Warren Kyle Keith, you got a copy with us in the KBueno booth?
Yep.
All right, Warren, well, tough luck there on the most recent incident. Just tell us what happened from your end as you were battling side by side with Craig Parks.
I don't know. Gets absolutely doored into 3. It is what it is. I mean, we're racing for the win, or at least top 5 here, and then I don't know where he was going in the dogleg. I mean, I turned in like I was going to take the dogleg normally, and he was still in the second lane. I mean, his trajectory was not even going to make the dogleg, so I don't know where he was going. But, yeah, it sucks. We had a good car and won stage 1, but yeah, just another Drunken Bros Racing.
You got the Stage 1 win, some good points there, obviously not a finish that will reflect how fast your car has been all night long. What are you trying to recover when you guys go to Auto Club next week on Sunday?
I mean, we're in the playoffs by a good bit, so just kind of just run. It'd be cool to get 3 poles in a row, but Auto Club's a good racetrack for us, so we'll just go out there and Larson line the wall like we always do and see what happens.
Well, Warren, we appreciate the time. Sucks that you were taken out of this race, but hopefully things get better at Auto Club next week. Best of luck.
Thanks, bud.
That's Warren Kyle Keith, who will rejoin some of his associate teammates and try to help them get a race victory at the end of this one. But Drinkin' Bros Racing will remain in control this restart now within 4 laps to go. We are nearing an overtime attempt if we get another yellow flag within 3 laps remaining, which will be the 2nd straight race in which we end under overtime. Eric Schaefer, the race leader, he's yet to falter yet on a restart. Brandon Banks on the outside to respond. He's defended well against Stephen Harlow, who sits 3rd. Alex Muscarella remains on the outside of the 2nd row in 4th. And Casey Knighton for D Legacy Motor Club, the first time we see his name in the top 5. It may be all up to this if we find no trouble from here on out. Green flag waves from Avondale, Arizona. This time, Brandon Banks cannot cover off the inside to the dog leg. Stephen Harlow to the inside for 2nd place in turn 1.
But can he clear Banks is going to be the question, really. As he tries to gas it up in the center of the corner and roll the corner, he should get to 2nd away here, and he does. So now Harlow's clear for 2nd. What can he do against Eric Schaefer?
Harlow has been so fast over the last half of this race, but he's yet to beat Eric Schaefer either on the inside or outside. They're sort of shuffling at the back of the field. Casey Knighton is getting flushed down by the field. Brandon Banks is not going to give this one up yet. But on board with the 11 Chevrolet, he's got to look to the inside. Can he press forward in the final 2 miles?
And does he make contact here in these last couple laps, trying to take the position away from Schaefer?
Well, countless times we've seen Schaefer play defense via that 3rd and 4th lane on the outside of the racetrack. And this time, it's proving no different. Another lunge by Harlow down low. Unsuccessful. Schaefer goes back into the throttle, and he's got the momentum off of turn 2, coming to the white flag next time by.
That was actually still a really good corner for Schaefer, though, Kenneth, because it allowed the 11 to get the car slowed down. He tried to get to the right rear. It actually has to slow down a lot, so that was not a good corner. He's going to have one lunge at it with Schaefer taking the white flag.
The final chance for Stephen Harlow is here in this white flag lap. And for the 2nd race in a row, we've got a battle between the top 2, at least under 0.3 of a second. Harlow's there with a chance at the final 2 corners. Can Schaefer hold on? Here comes Harlow. One more send, and it won't work. Eric Schaefer, for the first time, takes the win from Phoenix Raceway.
And DVR goes back-to-back on this West Coast swing, with Peel taking the victory last time out at Las Vegas, and Eric Schaefer, who drove his way through the field to capture the race lead and was going to make it difficult to pass all night long, takes the win here, holding off that hard charge from Harlow, which, if he doesn't make that mistake in 3 and 4 coming to the white flag, it probably would have given him a better opportunity, but it was still a great battle from both of these guys, as there's Lawson Peel giving the congratulatory tap to his teammate, as Schaefer will celebrate here on the front straightaway.
Turn 3 is such a treacherous part of this Phoenix Raceway, because if you overshoot by even the smallest of margins, your car will go up the racetrack, and in dirty air, the feeling is exacerbated. Stephen Harlow had the chance, unfortunately got wide at the exit of turn 4, and just had to pick up the pieces in that final lap, and could not do it. But Eric Schaefer holds on, and for the first time this season, Schaefer will join Lawson Peel and Timothy Stubblefield as the drivers to visit Droppin' the Hammah victory lane in 2025.
When we have the chance, let's see if we can get a look at those final laps once again and just see how the chess moves were all.
Let's go. What's up? Yo, what's up, Kenneth? How you doing, man? How are you? Good. How you been? What you got in the bag, man?
I got a panini, I have a hoagie, I got it all through the Wall Rewards app.
You can order it all through the app?
You can order it all through the app.
I can order it all through the app. The world is my oyster! By placing your order on the Wawa app, you can pick up at any time with ultimate satisfaction. Gotta have a Wawa. Another fantastic race by both of those cars. Eric Schaefer the winner after 200 complete laps, and this race does not extend past its distance. We do not end up in DTH overtime. Schaefer the winner makes it 2 in a row for Drinkin' Bros Racing. Stephen Harlow, strong car all night long, ends up in second. Brandon Banks also with a wonderful race car near the end, and had it not been for that strategy call to stay out earlier, you could only imagine what if for Banks in this race, but he ends up on the podium. We'll talk to all three of them before we wrap up our coverage tonight. Alex Muscarella, despite some troubles throughout this race, overcame the obstacles. He is fourth. Parker Bland, earlier in this race, went hard into the outside wall, but she recovers nicely for her first top 5 of the season, I believe. Kip Easley back in P6. Casey Knight in for 7th place. Zachary Hall bounces back for 8th. Chris Cabot, who spent most of this race behind the 8 ball, settles for 9th, and Richard Swavely brings in the top 10.
Boston Peel ends up recovering to a P11 finish. Kevin Roy will finish in the 12th spot with Brad Fulham, who brought out that late caution. In the 13th spot, Timothy Stubblefield rounds out your lead lap finishers in 14th with Robert A. Moyer Jr. in the 15th position. Craig Parks, unfortunately, will finish in the 16th spot after that contact with Warren Kyle Keith, who is in the 17th spot. Justin Earp in 18th with Cedric Hunter in 19th, who had a good showing earlier on, and Zachary Rungich in his debut had shown some great speed, but will unfortunately finish in the 20th spot.
Back in 21st is the other car involved in that accident with Rongich, James Kunkel, who was solid throughout the night, but went hard into the rear bumper of Rongich's Chevrolet. Takes them both out of it. Richard Muldridge, strong, got some stage points earlier on tonight, but ends up 22nd, 63 laps down. Jason Hastings, troubled all night long. 23rd is for him. Sean Kalis gets 24th. Ross Harlow had a near crash in the first lap of this race, but never got back on track. 25th for Harlow tonight. Eric Stewart back in 26th. Chris Progar with a torn-up race car early is 27th. And Jason Anderson made about 2 laps worth of racing before exiting the session, and he ends up as the final car in our 28th car field from Phoenix. Well, let's get a moment to talk with Eric Schaefer in Droppin' the Hammah victory lane for the first time this season, and for the second straight race in a row. Drinkin' Bros Racing maintains control, but Schaefer, it's his first. Welcome to victory lane, Eric. An unbelievable way to end that race. What was it like at the final stint, mostly in those final 2 yellows, and as you were able to hold on, how did you do it?
I don't know, man. I was hoping it was going to stay green there because I knew the Harlow and the other guys were really good on the short run. I was more of the long run tonight, but no, I was not looking forward to the short run, but just sent it down in there and hoped it'd stick, and I knew he was going to try to send it in there in the last couple corners, but just hang on there for the win. So I was very, very happy about that, honestly.
What did it take to overcome the obstacles of this track? We mentioned the early morning start in sim to where the track temperature was a little cooler to begin, then it got a little hotter as the race progressed, and you, Warren, Kyle Keith, several others had used that outside lane so well in turns 1 and 2. What seemed to work over this race, and how were you able to finesse that to have a really fast race car tonight?
That's just running so many races here in the B car, man. Just learning how to make 3 and 4 run, and work with the car. With this car here, you can't feel the suspension travel as much in the weight transfer like you can in the B car and in the truck. So you just got to kind of go off of the wheel and what the car is doing and what it looks like it's doing on the screen. But no, just running the outside there to me was helping save my right front than running the bottom in 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. But no, I don't know, man. I told Lawson and them earlier tonight when I got in here, I didn't know how this was gonna go because Kenneth, as well as you know, I don't like this car that much, but I'm starting to finally practice with it and take time and starting to figure it out. But I'm just pretty happy I was able to get the win tonight.
Well, when you lead 99 of these 200 laps and you get a race win, I think it went pretty well for the most part. Eric, you make it 2 in a row for this Drinkin' Bros Racing team. You join Lawson Peel and Timothy Stubblefield as those that are right now locked into the DTH Cup Series playoffs. How do you bring this momentum forward to the rest of this West Coast swing and the rest of the regular season?
Just keep doing what I'm doing, man. We all in this Discord rely so much on Lawson because he runs his car all the time. So we just got to keep listening to him and just try not to kill my stuff right off the bat, man. Like earlier, running the long run stuff, it's just going to be a long run. For me, it's going to be long runs to be able to make this car last for me. So I just got to be patient but the momentum, man, the momentum's going forward right now. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the weeks.
Well, Eric, it's a wonderful race tonight from Phoenix Raceway. You capture your first victory. It was a little close, probably more than you would like, but still a great finish regardless. Before we let you bounce here from Phoenix Raceway as you celebrate in virtual victory lane, anyone you want to give a shout out to or thank for tonight's effort?
Yeah, huge shout out to you and Francisco for all y'all do on y'all's network, KBueno. I really appreciate it, man. Y'all always have the best broadcast all over. And huge shout out to Stimpy and all the admins and Droppin the Hammah Discord and all the league. And huge shout out to all the DVR guys, Lawson, Banks, Craig, Jason, everybody was having a good night tonight. And yeah, I really appreciate y'all.
Well, Eric, on behalf of all of us at the KBueno Racing Network, congratulations on the victory. I know it means a lot for you, and we really appreciate the kind words as well. Best of luck for you and the rest of the field heading into Auto Club, but until then, congrats on the W.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Eric Schaefer gets the first victory for himself, the second for Drinkin' Bros Racing in this 2025 campaign. Behind him, Stephen Harlow, who joins us now with Francisco Bacallao.
Well, Steven, it was a P2 effort from you here tonight. You definitely had a car capable of challenging up for the win. What more did you need to be able to come away with the position?
I just wish that last long run kept going. I had Schaefer on tires by a mile, and I don't know how far back I came from, but I tracked everybody down. And side by side, caution comes out. And I was like, oh no. And then uneven tires, it was just so hard to do anything. The only real way it was going to be through a long run like that and being able to save.
Yeah, we documented, Kenneth and I did on the green flag, that it was just always going to be tough to make that inside pass work, whether it was on new tires, but on old tires you actually would stand a chance just because the tire difference sometimes could play a role. You guys are side by side there when that caution came out. It was just mere inches when it did, and that probably made the difference.
Yeah, I think it did for sure.
It was still a solid run from you, Steven. You drove your way through the field, and you got it up to P2, and who helps make this all thing happen for you and your 11 team?
Well, I got to thank Warrior Soar, Team Watts of Racing Setups, and Project Hopner for letting me run their colors and put their put their logos all over my car. I want to thank my brother Ross for making this awesome looking race car. Family at home for watching. You guys, the broadcast team, you guys do so much to make this look as cool as it feels. And I think I speak for all the drivers when I say that we really appreciate it for sure. And I think the team at DTH, we've been kind of working together better. At least for me, it's helped a lot to kind of learn the race car, learn how they drive better. I don't think I've ever passed Lawson on straight speed ever. So I feel like we did something right tonight for sure.
Appreciate the kind words, Steven, and we appreciate the time you take to come out here and race with us. And just out of curiosity, I got to see, what was the 500 setup looking like as you were racing?
What's that?
Like? Yeah, like how were you watching the race as you were racing yourself?
Oh, I was totally locked in on our race. I wasn't even paying attention.
Oh, well, that's one way of doing it, Kenneth.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, if he doesn't know the result, we're not going to tell him. We're not going to spoil.
No.
We'll let him.
No.
We'll let him find the finish. But
I heard that Priest almost went over the catch fence.
yes, that did
That's
happen.
not inaccurate. Yeah. Yeah.
He finds a way to fly every year.
Well, we'll let you watch that finish, though, Steven. We appreciate it, but go watch the finish to the Daytona 500. You don't want to miss it.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
That's Stephen Harlow's second place here from Phoenix, always in good spirits, and he'll figure out who won the big American race in just a couple of minutes as he gets set up. I think he's just getting off iRacing now, and we'll click off to a window to see what happened. We'll toss over to third place. We are joined now by Brandon Banks, and Brandon, a really pivotal pit call got you in this position where you stayed out on 7-lap old tires alongside Parker Bland. You lead a considerable amount of this race, and then you put yourself in a position to win within those final 20-odd laps. What was that like in that final stint?
Yeah, I mean, that was my fault, honestly, in the first place. I ended up speeding earlier in the race and getting back in traffic, and it's so hard to pass here. If you can't do it in the first 15 laps or so, the tires go away so bad on the rears, it's hard to even get off the corner to make a pass. So I really kind of screwed myself up there. I had pretty decent track position after the first stage, and I don't know, just completely unaware of where the exit cone was, I guess, and just sped. So, but yeah, we had to do that to get a little bit of track position. We were on maybe just 3 or 4 lap deficit tires at that point, so it was kind of a good call just to get back up there. And yeah, like I said, I don't really feel like I was honestly a third place car. I think we came out with on the good end of this. I was probably more of a 7th or 8th place car overall. The biggest thing is just trying to stay in it and not make a mistake and trying to keep the track position and just hope, the cautions fall when they do to give us a little bit of advantage. And I think with having that later caution and being able to get on even tires with those guys, that made a big difference. So, yeah, I think that's it. I think too with Chafe, that was kind of his big thing. Track position was just so important. If you could keep the guy, pinned down to the bottom, it was really hard unless they had a great car to get off the corner to beat you. So yeah, congrats to him. He did everything right tonight. And like I said, we'll go on next week and see if we can at least put another good finish together like this.
Well, regardless, it's another step forward in this 2025 campaign, and over the short sample size of 3 races, you finished 20th at the World Center of Racing. Then it was a top 10 we saw you get at Las Vegas 2 weeks ago, and now you improve again for 3rd place. What will get you over the hump and get you a W here in this season?
I don't know, man. There's some pretty good guys. I mean, you put Lawson Pill in this field, it's hard to ever win. Between him and Stipien and Steven and all them, they're really good. Schaefer, I mean, I don't know. We got some good tracks coming up. We'll, like I said, just biggest thing is just trying to stay in it to the end and try to keep yourself in position to even have a chance at it. Because, I mean, these guys are so good that they don't really make a lot of mistakes. So that's just what we're going to try to do. And I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, I don't know. We'll just try to stay in it. That's the biggest thing. We don't always have the fastest car, but I feel like I have pretty good strategy a lot of the times and kind of know what's going on. So, yeah, just that's all we can really do, and just try to be there at the end.
Well, just like we've seen in this series and in other leagues, you're always as consistent as ever, and it proves right today here at the Phoenix Raceway. Before we let you go, Brandon, on this 3rd place effort, anybody you want to give a shout out to or thank before we let you bounce?
Oh, well, thanks to you guys for sure. You guys put an excellent broadcast on. Thanks for everything you do. Dropping the Hammer with Steven and Progar and Kunkel and all those guys that put this on. It's a really fun league. Definitely the DBR guys and Paul's Setup Shop, everybody that that comes out and watches us every single week. And said we'll go on next week and see what we can do.
Well, Brandon, we appreciate the time. We appreciate the kind words as always. Congratulations on the podium here from Avondale, Arizona. Good luck as we head to Auto Club next week.
All right. Thank you.
That's Brandon Banks, who closes out the top 3 here from the virtual Phoenix Raceway. And from now, Francisco, we move on to our final race of our West Coast swing. We got Las Vegas done and dusted. Then next at Phoenix tonight. Now we've got the 2-mile D-shaped oval at Auto Club, a track that now will live forever in history in its own configuration from iRacing. We've seen classics at that track before. Surely it may not be any different once we visit Fontana next Sunday.
Auto Club is always a fun racetrack to visit too. Can't wait to see how the race goes there. For 150 laps around that racetrack, 4 Wide does their traditional 125. They did a handful of months ago earlier on in the season, and they'll do so again come playoff time in a couple months. So this is a good preview of what we could see around then, and also just get another great visit at that racetrack. It's a shame they tore it down and are doing whatever they're doing in that region, because that racetrack really started getting a second kick out of it in its last couple of years with the next gen car and even with the Xfinity car. So Kyle Busch, John Hunter, and Nemechek taking Solstice and being the last winners of Auto Club Speedway. But even looking further ahead over Chicagoland, Road America, that road course is going to be fantastic. And of course the new updated New Hampshire before our All-Star break at Martinsville Speedway. All that is going to be very fun to watch.
It'll be great, and several diverse tracks before that All-Star break. Still many different winners that we could decide here in 2025. So that'll be a ton of fun. You won't want to miss it. All of the races for this inaugural Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series campaign will be featured right here on the KBueno Racing Network YouTube channel. Boy, do we have more storylines and more wins to showcase to you over the course of the year on the road to Homestead, Miami. But until then, that's done for us on the broadcast side of things for this third race of the 2025 Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series. On behalf of the league admins and owners, Chris Progar and Steven Stempien, for all of their hard work at the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series, and for everyone at the KBueno Racing Network, for Keelan Belsha, Charlie Byer, and for our crew on the broadcast tonight, my colleague in the booth, Francisco Bacallao, joining me, Kenneth Bueno, saying so long from Avondale, Arizona. Eric Schaefer gets the second straight win for Drinkin' Bros Racing, and it's a dominant win from Phoenix. We'll see you at Auto Club next Sunday night.